I'd like to call the special board meeting of April 22nd to order. And Kelly, could I have a roll call vote, please?
Reagan,
Here.
Forsythe,
Here.
Lightfoot,
Here.
Sheridan,
Here.
Smithers, Perkins, Paul, Bay, Haggard, Webster, Burke, Jeanette, Terminelli, Curran. Both present.
Okay, I'd like to announce that Mr. Jeanette and Ms. Haggard are excused this evening, as well as Ms. Terminelli will be attending remotely from 23 Walnut Ave, Messina. And do I have a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda by Ms. Curran and Mr. Perkins? Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Mr. Smithers, would you present tonight's resolution?
Propose a resolution authorizing the chair as the authorized official to sign all Northern Regional Commission Catalyst investment documents and supporting the application for funds to replace the Thule Pond Road Bridge, bin 3340750.
And is there a second? Second by Mr. Denisha and Ms. Curran. Any discussion on the resolution? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion's carried. There's no chair's appointment, so this meeting's adjourned.
Call to order the Finance Committee meeting Monday, April 22nd, 2024. Can I get an approval for the agenda? Ms. Curran, second by Mr. Denisha. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of March 25th? Mr. Denisha, Ms. Curran, any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. What we have next is Albany updates from Senator Danstad. I did. That's perfect.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here in St. Lawrence County. You are my first official, you are all my first official governmental meeting since the budget was adopted. So, you know, we are all still clearing the fog and the cobwebs from finishing mid-afternoon on Saturday. You know, certainly we're going to be going through and getting down in the weeds as to, you know, what's where, but, you know, the broad strokes and the big picture, I'm happy to, I thought I'd try to give you guys an update on that. I'll tell you a little bit about my involvement on the floor. As probably a lot of you know, but maybe not all, the state's budget is a collection of 10 bills. So it's not a single vote. So, you know, as far as, you know, it's never, did you vote yes or no on the budget? As it turned out, I voted against all 10 budget bills this year. But in fairness, you know, to everyone there, these bills, there's a lot of good stuff in there and there's a lot of bad stuff in there. And I suppose it depends on your mindset or, you know, how to vote yes or no. But, you know, I think an honest person could make an honest defense of either vote in some instances. But, you know, when there's a poison pill in there on a lot of these bills, or the sheer volume of the dollar amount, which is my main concern. You know, I think at the end of the day, people vote with their feet. And so I've been looking at, you know, where the state's going in the direction that we're going in financially and from a policy perspective, certainly criminal justice area. You know, we have an out-migration problem. We lead the country in out-migration. So these are our voters and taxpayers that are trying to send a message. We are displeased. We are looking elsewhere to live and to raise a family and to do business. The budget came at $237 billion, $8 billion higher than last year. We were 229. The governor had proposed in her budget in January 233. And Senate and Assembly budgets 2 months later came in separately, but coincidentally at $246 billion. So way higher than even the governor. So I don't think that those were necessarily serious, you know, stabs at it. I think they just said, hey, well, let's put all of our, you know, our hopes and dreams in here and see what sticks to the barn wall in the negotiation process. As you all know, the negotiation process spilled 3 weeks late. So this is my 12th budget that I've done, 4th in the Senate. But I had 8 years in the Assembly before. This year and last year's budget were the 2 latest by far. Usually we were done the first 10 days of, not, you know, April 10th was late before. Last year we were in early May. This year we were in, came in on April. Half year. The budget is more than Texas and Florida's combined. We spend 1.5 times per capita what California does. We lead the country in out-migration. So my mindset on most of my no votes were sheer, this is not affordable. Now, with that said, there's always policy in the budget. I am pleased that if there's one good thing I would say in the last couple of years, there's been less policy or less offensive or controversial or substantial policy in the budget than there used to be. It used to be like anything controversial at all got wedged into the leverage of a budget. This year is a little more traditional budget stuff, but there's still a lot of language in there. I've tried to anticipate some of the questions that you might have. And again, I want to talk about, you know, some of the debate that I had on the floor. So there's 63 senators, 42 Democrat, and 21 Republican. So my conference, Republican conference, we go through these bills as we get them. And, you know, our staff goes through and tries to pull out as much data and information as they can, answer all of our questions before we hit the floor to debate the bills. One of the bills that came in, the aid to localities. This is the bill that has your school increases in it. I mean, there's a lot of money in the aid to localities bill, but the aid to localities bill also had the provision in there to allow the governor with 90 days notice to close up to 5 prisons. The current law, outside of putting something in the budget, is a governor can close whatever prison the governor wants with a 12-month notice. So the governor has the authority to close. This was how much lead time she had to do. I think a lot of people think 12 months is a long time to kind of have that hanging over the workforce, if you will, the uncertainty. So I can understand maybe a desire to that. Although talking to people at Department of Corrections, 90 days is really not feasible. It's too short a timeline to effectively do all this. My conference was opposed to the prison closures. We discussed it, and we offered that we would put in a hostile amendment to remove that part of the budget language from that bill. I presented that hostile amendment on the floor. So I spoke, made the argument to to amend the bill. It was voted down on a party line vote. Not so surprising. These are how these things generally go. But I had an opportunity to speak on that. And then we debated the bill. And again, we're limited in 2 hours debate time per budget bill. And there's all kinds of stuff to debate. So we have to be judicious in, hey, who's going to talk about what? So it fell to me to debate the prison closures in the budget. And now, certainly can make the obvious financial, the economic impact of the host community, certainly make the argument, the direction of our criminal justice policy. Are we correctly heading in the right direction of legalizing everything? As an aside, down in Albany, I try to lighten the mood when I can, and maybe make a point at the same time of adding a little humor in. But people, especially my colleagues, ask me, "How you doing?" Like the sheriff, earlier tonight, he said, standard greeting, "How you doing?" And I love it when judges or district attorneys have been asking me, "How you doing?" Because my answer now is, great. If I was doing any better, it'd be illegal in 49 other states, but not New York. But so we can argue whether or not we're heading in the right direction with criminal justice, but the direction is it's resulted in fewer inmate headcount. So obviously, you start looking at the dollars and cents of this, and so there's an argument to be made about prisons and how many prisons we need to have. They also have a severe staffing issue. They can't hire people. Now, the hiring and the retention, that is largely based on the kind of workplace environment we've given them with our recent changes. We've made it much more dangerous for everyone in law enforcement, police on the street, the parole officers, the average citizen, and certainly the people in prisons. The prison statistics in the last, you go back to the last 10, 15 years, you see a hockey stick the last 3 years after the HALT Act, the anti-solitary confinement legislation, which is a real misnomer. Inmate on inmate and inmate on staff violence assaults have tripled in those last 3 years. So there's a safety issue in the prison. They have said, and I believe this, that whatever they do, as far as whatever the governor and docs decides to do, the closure up to 5, so it may not be 5, it may be less than 5, but whatever that is, they've got jobs for everybody. I mean, they have a shortage, so no one will be without a job. Then the question obviously becomes, is that person's job going to stay in that community, or is that person going to move halfway across the state? I suspect, although no one's told me this, but I suspect that one of the looks they're going to do is the clusters, the ones that are near each other. And unfortunately for me, there's 44 correctional facilities in the state facilities, and 8 of them are in my district. When I took office 4 years ago, 10 of them were in my district. I've already seen this happen twice. I saw the Clinton Annex in Clinton County, and I saw Mariah Shock in Essex County fall to the 90-day, give the governor. So I've seen this dance before. I know Bill Riverview and Governor, not Ogdensburg, is already closed. But I know that there's 2 remaining in St. Lawrence County. They're in Mark Walsh's district. So certainly we don't want to see any of them done. The thrust of my debate was not, hey, we're going to base our economy on running prisons, although that's nothing to be trifled with. But that there are 2 things that really bother me about what we've done with prisons. One, we have a safety issue. And I'm not sure that further concentrating more of the remaining bad apples, the people that are left in these prisons now are the worst of the worst. These are the problem children. And you're going to create a situation where you've got even more of them under one roof. I don't think we should be making those kinds of moves until they figure out the prison violence, the prison assaults, this halt stuff, you know, that you literally have the inmates running the facility right now. I've had people on the honor block in Great Meadow, which is a maximum in Washington County, also in my district. Honor block inmates saying they don't like the new HALT Act, that people that are in the RRU and this program have more rights, more time, more access to services than people on the honor block. So, you know, an unintended consequence of some of these changes that we've made in our prisons is we are sending the wrong message to people that literally are stimulus response people. You know, if they see opportunity, you know, I mean, you know, they're not necessarily thinking it through. They're thinking, you're going to give me an inch, I'm going to take a foot. So I think a dangerous thing that they're doing. So I said, we should not be making moves to close prisons until we get this under control. And then the other thing is, and I don't need to tell anyone here this because we've seen this in the North Country, the state as the property owner, as the steward of these properties, has done an awful job with that property in the community after they close it. They close it without a plan, and then it sits there for years, and they take the heat out, and Mother Nature comes in, and then you have a building that could have been usable, but you let it go for 5 or 10 years, and it's falling apart, and it literally looks like something from an apocalypse. You know, Lion Mountain, Chattagay, you know, those are two great examples. Camp Gabriel's in Franklin County. So, you know, my other argument was, you shouldn't close another prison unless you have a plan for that building when you close it. Now, this goes back governors, they've had a horrible track record, they close it, and then it becomes a blight for the local community to deal with, and it only gets worse. So, that was the debate on this. It still passed. I don't think a single Republican in the Senate voted for that bill. But going forward, what's going to happen? The governor has 90 days. She can come out with a list tomorrow, or she can come out with a list at Christmas. I think a couple of years ago, the list came out right around the holiday. So, you know, it's not like, when can we expect the list? Sometime between now and the end of the year, 90 days. And I asked on debate, will it be one list, or she can do whatever. She can say, here's one today, and then a month from now, she can say, here's 2 more, so long as she has 90 days. So we'll see what happens. But again, I personally worry about the 3 in Malone, because again, it'd be very tempting to scavenge the workforce from one of those and put them to work in the other 2. The good news for the community and the good news for those employees is they don't have, you know, the economic value stays, you know, at least the payroll stays in the community. I got 2 down in Fort Ann in Washington County, Great Meadow, and then the medium across the street, Washington. They could do that. So I'm not as familiar with Gouverneur or Riverview, but you know, I got like Altona, I've got Adirondack. These are standalones, but they're small. What is their goal? I think they're looking to scavenge workforce. So I'm not sure that they're going to look at closing a small one, because there's just not enough workforce to scavenge it. And again, this is just me spitballing and guessing here. So the bottom line is, officially, no one has a list yet. If there's a list, then maybe the Commissioner's Corrections has it already. Maybe the governor's seen it, but I can tell you, I haven't seen it, and I'd be shocked if any of my colleagues on either side of the aisle have seen a list. So I want to spend a lot of time on that, because a few people told me that there's particular interest in that here. School aid, foundation aid. We landed on where they restored the hold harmless. But I parallel what the schools saw here is what happened to you all, the counties, with EFMAP last year. You know, that the governor floated it in her budget. The Senate and Assembly panned it, says, no way, this is terrible for our locals. We're not going to, and then it went away. All we heard about last year was housing and bail reform. That was all the news up until months later, we finally adopt the budget. And when that deal came out, EFMAP was suddenly back in there. Hundreds of millions of dollars from our counties kind of slid in there, and everyone was surprised with that. So, because the counties had money, you know, the sales tax revenue was there. That's why I think the governor was looking at it. And they needed $2 billion for illegal immigrants in New York City last year. So guess where some of that money came from? This year, the complaint about the schools was they're all running youth fund balances. They are all over their 4% that they're supposed to have. They've got money. And she was going to get rid of hold harmless, which would have resulted in 300 out of 1,000 school districts to get less foundation aid money. A lot right here in St. Lawrence County. oh, by the way, the big five, that's what they call the big five school districts, New York City, Yonkers, Syracuse, Rochester, and Buffalo. They all got a lot more money under the new formula. So now I'm looking at this formula and I'm starting to get suspicious, right? I mean, the pies, the reality in Albany right now is this pie, they can't grow it like at the same rate anymore that they used to. The federal money isn't coming in anymore. I think that they've started to realize, hey, we can't just keep making this pie bigger. So now they're thinking, all right, the pie's not gonna get bigger. How are we gonna cut this pie up? And so before it used to be hold harmless. No one got less, you know, I mean, it was all based on your enrollment. But, you know, if your enrollment went down, now you didn't get the hit. So, you know, the slices of who got what percentage of that pie didn't change a lot. Well, now somebody's figured out, hey, that pie's not getting bigger. How do I get more money? Why are those small, upstate, rural, Republican schools getting all this money? They don't have the head count. All right, so I get the head count argument, but to roll it out immediately and say, we're gonna do this. So they did back away from that, but the governor has said that there was agreement that this is gonna happen next year. So be prepared for your schools. They're not gonna necessarily bother you. They're gonna call my phone will ring and I'll say, hi, I'm for this. But, you know, next year the conversation's gonna come back around for schools and school aid. But we did get rid of the hold harmless, removal in the budget this year. I think that was a decent place to land on. The big creature in the room that bothered, I think, most of us in my conference was $2.4 billion for New York City. Last year was $2 billion, $1.9 billion. This year was $2.4 billion to New York City for their migrant housing crisis for illegal immigrants that are here. This was a self-inflicted, the frustrating part to me is this was foreseeable and preventable. Obviously, some of it is not our pay grade anyways. It's a federal issue, the southern border. But with that said, with what's been allowed to happen at our border, some states and some cities and some communities said, they turned on the bat signal and said, come here. You know, we're great people and we're generous and we love everybody and we're going to take care of you. And some of us are saying, this is going to cost a lot of money. No, it's not going to cost a lot of money. We're going to do the right thing because we're better than the other people that don't like this. Paraphrasing, but that's the vibe that I got. So, 2.4 billion is going to go there. Now, to give you an idea, you know, what 2.4 billion, I mean, it's a lot of money, you know, and the debate that I made on the floor, again, I try not to repeat what other people have said about the migrant crisis. You know, I mean, I agreed with, you know, a lot, but we have a limited amount of time to debate these bills. I want to say something a little new. So I tried to put in the perspective of chunks of our budget and how they compare to 2.3 or $2.4 billion. We get a lot of environmental activists come to Albany to lobby for the EPF, the Environmental Protection Fund, capital projects, all kinds of, you know, environmental infrastructure that I support. You know, I've historically supported. Yeah, you know, is some of it questionable? Is some of it a little too climate, you know, action for me? Yes, but by and large, you know, it's well managed. It goes to good stuff, but there's a lot of time and energy put in by a lot of people on that part of our budget, and that's $400 million. CHIPS, your highway fund for local, county, village roads. The formula, no one debates the formula. There's no politics in CHIPS. It's a formula. It's probably the fairest way that we hand out money. The only question every year is how much do we want to fund our local roads? And you all know, you've got your highway guys come down, they wear the orange shirts, they give up a day of work. We all pray we don't have snow while they're all in Albany. They come to Albany to lobby for the funding, which always bothers me when government panhandles other government for money. It shouldn't, you know, shouldn't have to, that's not how it should work. It should be a, hey, how much do we borrow? But the CHIPS, $600 million. The increase in the foundation aid for the schools formula that I talked about, $1.3 billion. So the increase in school aid, all the state money that goes to local roads, and the state $400 million that goes to in the Environmental Protection Fund, we spend a lot of time talking, trying to figure that out. We spend less on that stuff than $2.4 billion. So that, you know, that's the frustrating part. So then you get, well, what wasn't funded? And again, now maybe not all this funding is stuff that I'd want to do, but there are a lot of people out there that are like, hey, you know, we're so close to giving all kids free lunches. Why don't we get that done and just take that? That was $100 million. Nursing homes, closing. Nursing home folks have been saying for years, we need to recalculate the rebasing, we need Medicaid reimbursement rates increased. They haven't increased for nursing homes in 15 years. Last year they did a little bit, still way behind. Their number, the nursing home number to, hey, let's fix the nursing homes for, well, a couple of you in here that'll be there in a few years, right? And, but most of your parents and grandparents. I was seeing if you're paying attention. They wanted $510 million. We put in 285 million. For another 200 million, we could have taken care of the nursing home streams. These are people that fought in wars, paid their taxes their whole life, didn't violate the law, weren't a problem for the sheriff, and their thanks is, nope, sorry, we're gonna close open, Helping Hands in Canton or Elderwood in North Creek, and you're gonna have to deal with finding a new place for mom and dad, maybe a couple hours from now, but we're gonna be better than those meanies, and we're gonna, pay $2.4 billion for non-taxpayers that came here illegally. Sure, maybe most of them are trying to, be good people and just chase a dream. They violated the law, and again, I mean, on the pecking order of things, citizens ahead of non-citizens, and then legals ahead of non-legals. I think that's a fair way to do it. Anyways, that's how I looked at it. So I was very bothered by, that this is where we are with our budget. So that, those are the big pictures of the budget. And I know there's going to probably be some smaller items that are out there, like I talked to Steve Button earlier today, and he did mention that, the foreclosure issue, and there's a court case that said, hey, when you foreclose, the government can keep what's owed them, but the rest goes back. That's, that's what we're gonna do. Good cause eviction, or the housing. Most of the stuff that was done down for New York City, and it focused on New York City issues, but they've opened it up to, well, the rest of you can start to opt in. What will happen is these advocates that push this issue really, really super hard in New York City, they will be coming to a town board and a county board meeting near you in the future to get you to opt in. Now, a couple things. Once you opt in, you can't opt out. So there is no, hey, this isn't working for us, we want out. Once you do, and our issue, my sides of the aisle issue on this basically boiled down to, it's an erosion of property rights, property owners' rights. If you own a property and you own 4 or 5 rental units, you don't own that. You don't control that property anymore. Once, under these new laws, once somebody signs a lease, they have the right, they have their own right to renew it for the rest of their lives. It will be very difficult for you to say, I don't want to rent to you anymore. I'm going to fix the place up and I'm going to increase your rent. All the control that an owner will have over their property, their rental properties. And again, I think, to give people the benefit of the doubt, they're looking at it at a lens from somebody that owns huge apartment complexes, thousands of units. But this is written, it will affect people that own, a couple duplexes. People that, hey, I saved my, I worked as an electrician, I put some money away, I bought a couple rental properties, and that's gonna be my retirement income. This is gonna spill over to the rest of the state. So I would caution you all, keep your eyes and ears open. So people start coming and talking about, hey, let's sign up for this. And the other thing that the nature of state government, there will be grant programs that are coming out, and they'll say, hey, we got this great grant for you. And in order for your municipality to qualify for this grant, you have to participate in this program. This program will be sign up for the new housing rules and the good cause eviction. So there will be pushes and nudges from, I think, the Albany, and also I think from advocates to, to really socialize property ownership. So that was another big chunk of the budget that got a lot of debate. So I rambled on, a lot of what we did, but I mean, it took in like 15 minutes, you got like what took me like a week to get through. So I can condense it down as best as I could. But if there's questions that anybody has, again, I'm very happy to be in this room and not in the chamber like I was all week.
Mr. Lightfoot.
Senator, thanks for coming to this humble room and giving us the skinny on what's going on in Albany. What I didn't hear you address is anything with regard to emergency services. And I'm talking the EMT part of it, not the police part.
One of the things
Well,
that.
let me
All right,
finish.
sir.
What we're hearing is absolutely nothing from New York State. I'm not saying there's not something going on. but we're not hearing about it. I'm not hearing about it. And what we're looking at, being that we're the largest county in the state, is a heck of a problem trying to decide, or when the time comes, that the problem will be how to decide we're going to manage something like that in St. Lawrence County. We're not getting anything from the state at all as far as what they're going to contribute, okay? And this is not just a county problem, it's a statewide problem. And it's going to be huge. So I guess my question is, if there is something going on, can you clue us in on that? If there isn't, why isn't there? Because NISAC addressed this, and I wasn't there, but I'm getting the feedback from NISAC, that this is coming up. And I think the message is, if you don't do it on your own and figure it out, you're gonna get mandated. And you know how we love mandates, and we're used to them. And it seems like every time you turn around, there's another one. I would think that this would be another one that the state is gonna try and pawn off on the counties to do this. Now, Livingston County, Putnam County, any of those counties, it's like a drive from Ogdensburg to Messina, from one end to the other. It's a big difference down here. And you've got people in Star Lake that depend upon a hospital in Watertown to meet their needs. We're gonna have a tough problem up here trying to meet those needs. And there are some needs we haven't even thought of, I'm sure. But personnel, paid personnel, equipment, location, building, ambulances, supplies, you name it. I would hate to see the counties get stuck for this when there's such a largesse for other things that we really shouldn't be paying.
One of the things that several groups were looking for, hoping would be addressed in the budget that was not, was to make EMS an essential service. Like a lot of people are very surprised when you talk about the sheriff's office. They're required, correct me if I don't get this 100% right, Sheriff, they're required to have a civil division, they're required to have a jail. They're not required to have road patrol. And of course, neighboring Franklin County, they don't have a road patrol, and there's a long history, goes back, and there's a lot of interesting history there. But, a lot of people are surprised when you say a town, that the sheriff's office does not have to provide road patrol. Most do, but not all. And likewise, people are always shocked when they realize towns are required to provide fire protection, but not EMS. Many do, but lately fewer and fewer because the numbers are getting astronomical to cover, and the volunteers aren't there. And more have had to go to paid service, paid daytime staffing anyways. Before I was in the legislature, I was Queensbury supervisor for 9 years. We had 5 fire companies and 3 rescue squads that got their funding through the town board. We brought in paid daytime staffing at the same time that we did bill for service in Queensbury. Now, the nice thing about Queensbury is it's 30,000 people. The economies of scale are there for that community. But you get outside of that and you get into, northern Warren County, the town of Thurman gave up their rescue squad because they couldn't staff it anymore. And now Warrensburg's covering it. But guess what? It takes a while to get out of Warrensburg to go to Thurman. So now you are going to have a disparity across the state as to which communities have good EMS service and which don't. I've got a couple of bills in the legislature that have not gone anywhere, and mine aren't the only 2, but I do have one that's statewide and the other one that just affects the Adirondack counties. My thought process there being that the legislature might have a little less problem passing it if they thought it was more localized. Frankly, if they don't want to worry about this problem for Onondaga County, then I'll let whoever represents Onondaga County worry about it. But in the Adirondack counties, to give counties the authority right now, creating a EMS district is really only something that the towns can do. And again, here, the town of Messina, the town of Canton, the town of Potsdam, they might have the numbers where, the economies of scale work where they can do that. But you get into you get into Clare, some smaller towns, and how do you, a rig is still $250,000, whether you're in Messina or whether you're in Clare. How do those numbers work? And, now you can have intermunicipal agreements amongst towns to say, hey, we're gonna pool ours and we're gonna create, a three-town, district. But there hasn't been a lot of guidance from the state to do it. There hasn't been any funding either. I mean, the fire and EMS, they're all locally funded. I mean, every once in a blue moon, somebody coughs up a grant for somebody to go buy air packs. But I mean, as far as, how do you buy the ambulances and the fire trucks and the buildings? The one thing that, EMS can do is they can bill. But again, if you're in Clare and you only get, I don't want to pick on Clare, but I mean, I don't know how many ambulance calls a year they might get there, 50, 100, if that, that even if you're billing, they can't pay for, they're gonna need a taxpayer subsidy from somebody, the town taxpayer. So those numbers can get out of whack in a hurry, where you're gonna have somebody that's in a densely populated area paying $100 a year in property taxes for EMS service, and the same service might cost somebody in a small town $500 or $1,000. I'm not sure what else, what other legislation may be out there to address this, but it is not a mandated service, and that's something that a lot of EMS people in the state are lobbying for. They would like to see it mandated, and that would force somebody to create a taxing structure around that to get it done. But and to be honest, I'm not very familiar with exactly how your county does it compared to Hamilton County or compared to Warren County, where I'm more familiar with that because I was at that level of government. I dealt with it, but we're starting to see longer and longer response times because the volunteers aren't there, and it's getting more and more expensive to cover.
Don't you think the state, is this not a worthy?
Well, I
thing
mean, $2.4
to-
billion, right? You could peel off some of that to take care of this.
Yeah,
And it
exactly,
didn't happen.
exactly.
But I don't know if it was
What I'm
discussed.
getting is that there's nothing going on in the state of New York that is addressing this.
There's no movement to say, hey, let's come up with hundreds of millions of dollars for EMS. I haven't heard that discussion at all.
Mhm. Or how the localities could fund it.
Well, localities can fund it through property taxes.
Oh, yeah.
Bill for
Yeah,
service.
absolutely.
And that's what happens in Warren County. That, we had a fire and EMS tax, and as a matter of fact, my
I
hometown.
realize you're one man down there,
Yeah.
one person, and, but, get it up together, raise it up.
Yeah, I squeaked a lot.
Mr. Smithers.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Sure.
And I encourage you not to get discouraged with your battle down there.
No, I love it.
You certainly have our support in a lot of these areas. And as far as prison closures, in the Governor area, the prison has big financial impact, and it would be a real blow there. We've lost, in my lifetime, a lot of the revenue from mining and from the paper mills. So some of that has fallen to the prison being there. So I think you're a good point as far as the prison population numbers. I did some research on the violent crime data from NYPD, and it's not down, it's up compared to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, in all 7 areas that I looked at. The only way that it's down is if you look at last year, which is kind of a
Well,
political
I thought you
thing.
meant the head count, the prison head count, the inmate count is down.
So the population in the
Population.
prisons has gone way down, so,
Well, that's,
yeah.
and I don't think we're better behaved. I just think we're not
So
arrested.
we don't want to put the
Partially.
criminals in jail. Yeah, so on the highways, I have a particular concern there on the funding. The CHIPS is no increase as far as that goes. And the other areas, I don't know how they turned out. Our commissioner says they're still flat also, the pave our potholes, the extreme winter recovery.
I think the highway
the
funding in general
Arches
is
Alley.
flat.
So with the increase in the cost, which is going up quite dramatically as far as equipment goes and labor, that's gone up. So that's going to have
We're
a
gonna pave less.
yeah, so fortunately, we were able to pave a little more using our fund balance. So, yeah, that's a concern. And the nursing homes certainly are a concern. We've had a number of closures here. And the numbers that you gave us, as to the 200 million, which would help a lot compared to what we're sending to New York City, that's yeah, misappropriation as far as some people are concerned. So I'd encourage you to keep that fight up.
A budget is a reflection of your values and priorities. period.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's no way around it. This is where the rubber meets the road. Everything else, you can stand and talk all you want, but at the end of the day, the budget is the official plan. This is what we value. And yeah, you know, I mean, we could have fixed, and it's not like the nursing home thing is new and no one's sure that it's a real thing. They've been screaming for 4 or 5 years that, hey, and they've been closing facilities for 4 or 5 years. So it's not like they're making this stuff up. They're closing. You will have more nursing homes closed this year because of a lack of funding. One in Warren County just said, hey, you know, if we don't, they're waiting on a grant right now. And if they don't get this grant, they're probably.
On the EMS issue, we're hoping that, I don't know if this has taken effect yet, that the insurance checks goes to the EMS facilities rather than to the individual. Hopefully that'll have some
Yes.
financial benefit
I don't know what the
to
effective
these
date
EMS
is,
facilities.
but that change has come. And yeah, and there's been cases where, you know, somebody gets his check in the mail, took an ambulance ride a month ago and they get a check in the mail from an insurance company and they don't turn it over. I mean, to me, I think that's theft, but, you know, right now it's, you know, it's not clear and they can say, no, I'm not gonna pay. And, so that should help. Yeah. Ms. Kern.
Hi, thank you for coming to visit us. So the nursing home federal guidelines that were passed today will increase how much personnel you have to have on site to run a nursing home, which will increase the cost, they feel, by 10%. But we got 2% increase in funding.
The percent increase, I think, they did it a little differently this year, but the increase was 6%, 6.5%.
So we'll lose 3.5% more. Okay, so that'll be interesting to watch.
But
Obviously-
the staffing ratios, to that point though, and New York State last year changed the mandated staffing ratios that no one's been hit with a penalty yet, but at some point there's gonna be an enforcement mechanism, but to this point, the state hasn't started dropping those hammers, but we mandated a certain level of staffing. I understand the arguments behind, hey, you know, how many people do you want one nurse or one assistant to cover? But so you put in a number and say, this is what you're going to provide. They can't hire people to fill it, you know, I mean, and they don't have the money to fill it. And as a matter of fact, one of the other on debate on this very subject, I talked about nursing homes in the budget on debate. We've, in increasing minimum wage, now you've got people like that are out there, hey, you know, I need to go get a job. All right, I can go to a fast food restaurant, I can go work at Walmart, or I can work changing bedpans and cleaning up after, you know, people that need help in a hospital bed. And those dollars are about the same. You know, I mean, unless you're a saint, most people are gonna say, no, thanks, I'll go to work at Walmart. So we're making it hard. So we're driving up the costs on our nursing homes, but we've done nothing to help them with the revenue side vis-a-vis the Medicaid reimbursement. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm also like, I just wanted to say something about the crime is up and we obviously aren't putting people in jail for the same things we were putting them in. So that's our decreased prison population. But we're having more problems, more crime. Do they say anything about like the quality of life?
You know, when when we debate these things, or if you watch, the news clips, or, the sound bites of, elected officials, it seems like, the other side of the coin here denies what we're all seeing on the street. The statistics look this way because certain arrests that used to be multiple, counts, now count as one. So, I mean, there's like a glitch in some of the way that the data is being collected. And, there's all kinds of statistics out there that says, some crazy percentage of the crime is being committed by a small percentage of repeat offenders because of the bail laws. I mean, most law enforcement, they're dealing with the same person over and over. And when you start sending messages to any population, but especially this group of population, that there's no consequences for your bad behavior, you're going to get more bad behavior. You're going to get worse bad behavior. I got away with this, so that's okay. So what's not okay? And sooner or later, you're going to run into a tragedy. Or any one of these little things that, that are relatively minor crimes, they are fortunate that that incident didn't end poorly. A routine traffic stop is never routine. I mean, it might be routine if you pull me over and hey, Dan, you're going too fast. Here's your ticket. Rats. Thanks. Have a nice day, officer. Snarky smile. But the flip side of that is you pull over somebody and why am I getting pulled over? They don't think it was because they had a taillight out. They're thinking because somebody knows that they got drugs in the car. And now, those officers burying 2 officers this week after a routine stop because there's no, and so many of my colleagues, their argument is, well, these aren't throwaway people and everyone deserves a second chance. And, the thing is that, what about the person that doesn't need the second chance, that works their tail off to not be a burden? What's their reward? What kind of message are you sending the person that, I was raised to follow the rules and I'm going to follow the rules, and they see everyone else around them cutting corners and getting away with it? You're encouraging more people to not follow the rules. And eventually that's going to bubble up to serious crime, violent crime.
Well, I think we are seeing an increase in violent crime. And the local PDs that I talk to report that it's the people they've been dealing with over and over again who might have gone to jail for something over here, a lesser thing, but they just keep on going until it's a big deal. And yes,
New York is the only state where judges can't factor in the dangerousness of the individual in a bail decision. The only state. So
That's a
they're-
shame.
the judges are supposed to be, what is the likelihood of this person coming back for the next court date? And if there's a question and it falls under some of the list of what's bail eligible, then they can say, I'm going to give you bail. And somehow that whole conversation got flipped on its ear where it's so people with money don't have to sit in jail and this is an attack on poor people. But New York is the only state where the judge can't say, you've done stuff like this similar before, you're heading in a path where somebody's going to get hurt.
Yes.
I'm going to hold you. The judge doesn't have that
What's
authority.
happening up?
maybe there should be a date that they pick where the governor and her staff start going around in general public, seriously, without armed guard, so they can understand what they're creating.
Come see Dad.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator, for coming again. I look forward to this. I'm going to call you the bearer of bad news every
Gotta
time.
go out. Come on. Come on.
I appreciate you fighting and I can't even imagine it. And priorities, as you mentioned, this is New York State priority.
Coach
We want
until
adults to
something
be
in
the
their own
nursing home.
community
They're not
gets
a priority,
closed.
which
A state
I just
commission
can't
said
wrap my hands
the
around.
planning board
My
judge
issue is
declaration
the insurance.
insurance
industry.
for inappropriate comment.
38 years I've been doing this, and the last 2 have been the most incredible thing I've ever witnessed. We good?
That's right.
So 38 years I've been doing this. I've seen carriers take 3, if not 4 auto rate changes in 1 year. Up until 2020, if you asked me to advocate for any department in New York State, it would have been the insurance department. They had one that was second to none. Now, you call down. First of all, if you get an answer, you're lucky. Second of all, if you get an answer to your question, it's unheard of. what has gone so array? Most carriers have shut the state down. They're asking for relief. They keep asking for relief. They're taking 3, 4 rate increase. That was unheard of in the old days. People just can't afford it. Young kids come into the office now, try to buy a new car, and it's $8,000, $9,000 for car insurance. It's more than the car payment, sometimes times 2. And it's just incredible, most incredible. And we were always like protected. We were in the lowest rates of the state. And now that is completely just turned around. I can't even imagine once you get closer to the city. But is there anyone that's on the insurance industry or on the commission for the insurance department or anything?
I'm
And
not on that committee, so I'm versed in it as,
we gotta get somebody on there that has some knowledge of what's going on, because this is,
so, I mean.
I don't
the
know where this is
chair-
gonna stop.
The chair of the insurance committee is Neil Breslin.
Okay.
He's been in the Senate maybe as long as you've been doing this.
Yeah.
He's about to retire, and he's moderate. He's a moderate Dem from the Albany area. And he knows that he's an insurance guy. I mean, this is
Yeah.
his background. I don't know,
Ken
off the top of my head, I
Blankenbush,
don't know who else is on the committee.
I think Ken is too. I think Ken
Well, and the
Blankenbush is
assembly,
on.
Ken Blankenbush
Yeah.
is, and he's an insurance guy.
But, and I mentioned it to him when I talked to him down at NISAC, but somehow we gotta get a grasp of this, because people just, we talked gas prices the last time, which, St. Lawrence County leads as the most unaffordable gas prices in this region. Now it's gonna be insurance rates, and it's just an awful thing to watch for me. So, any help to the insurance department to get a grasp?
Any other questions? If I could, one other thing I didn't mention earlier, southern part of the county, the Cranberry Lake area, your emergency towers, I want you to know I'm aware of it. Talked to the APA about, I've used that as a specific example. I've been fighting the tower height, tower policy issue with the APA for a couple of years now. Fighting, I say, politely, but, I've been pointing out, hey, this is the world we live in now. This tower policy is 20 years old. It's older than the iPhone. I did a survey, the results I get back, 99% of the people in the park own a cell phone. 2/3 of the people that live in the park don't have a landline. They only have a cell phone. It's an emergency services issue. The suggestion that I've been floating to APA, floating to the second floor. Last week, I had a meeting with somebody, one of the governor's people on these issues in my office. And they, finally, I saw him react. He perked up. He seemed to like the idea. But look, we got to get past the whole idea that these towers need to be invisible. They don't need to be invisible. No one's bothered or surprised or shocked to see a cell tower anymore. I'm not saying we need to put them on top of Mount Marcy, but for crying out loud, if you're driving on Route 3 or Route 30 or Route 11, you should have continuous cell service, because it's emergency service, emergency issue. But fewer taller towers, mandate or incentivize that, hey, we're going to build these towers, and if you want to go taller, we'll go taller so long as all 3 carriers and government could go on there. But I've used your experience with, now they want you to float the balloons again. I mean, this is crazy. These delays to float the balloons any further. I just, no one mentioned it tonight, but there's a handful, I've talked to your emergency comms guy, and then of course, I'm sure you all know, Mark Hall, who wears 2 hats in this fight. God bless him. But, you didn't bring it up, but I want you to know that I'm aware of this county-specific issue, especially in the southern part of the county, and doing what I can with both the governor's office. And I don't know if we'll get movement in time for you guys to have a favorable outcome here, but that there's no reason to not build a tower. It seems to escape some people, APA members and the staff. They seem to forget that these towers cost money. No tower company wants to build the tower 1 foot taller than the absolute minimum because it costs them money. So that, they're not going taller just because they want to feel good about it. They're going taller because that's what they determine makes the most sense. And if it's 20 feet taller than an environmentalist will say, I say, deal with it. And the good news is I think that because cell phones are ubiquitous now, and even, all of us, the most right-wing guy and the most progressive left-wing person, they all want their cell phones to work. So, I mean, I do think that we're going to get to some sort of common ground eventually. In fairness, cell service and broadband is better than it was 10 years ago in general. but it's not where it needs to be. And I do think inside the blue line, one of the things that's working against us is the tower policy. Now, blue line aside, there's also just economies of scale and, just like everything else, if you're in a rural area with weird topography, it's gonna be hard to build a tower to serve 10 people. So those challenges are still there, but, some of the tower policy at the APA should not be a game stopper for county government to build an emergency tower or 2 or 3. And so I just wanted to let you know that I was very aware of that issue for that part of the county, trying to help cover it.
And on the APA, since you brought it up, it is the largest park. You could put all the national parks within it. They keep buying more land. They're not taking care of it. We're going to end up having forest fires, just like California. They're not allowing us to put trails in it, to ride on it, to use it. They were taking down camps that have been around for decades. It's not right.
And the weird thing is, they're a little better than they used to. 20 years ago, they were very militant. Today, they're, kind of grit your teeth bureaucrats. But the APA, I think, has softened over time. But you're right. We still have these problems that you mentioned are still very real.
Tough for the people that live in the park.
Absolutely.
It's very difficult. Well, I'd like to thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And I apologize. I think I took more
For
time.
coming
than
in, but you hit
wanted me to.
the important topics.
I'm here if you need me. I'll come back anytime you, as a group, or, certainly any of you want to reach out to my office about something, or your town supervisors, let them know. And, I know that, we got a town supervisor that's, funneling information to me about, a piece of legislation that was signed through, and we're going to look into it. So, yeah, keep us busy. If there's one thing that I have very good staff. My chief of staff in the back of the room, Deb Capizzuti. She's been with me all 12 years that I've been in the legislature, and she worked for the Assemblywoman before me for 8 years. So she's been around. She knows where a lot of the bodies are buried, and she knows how Albany works. So I still learn from her. But so, if you've got an issue, insurance or what, hey, we're not getting an answer, call my office. You'd be surprised. One of the frustrations I have is, as a taxpayer, knowing that if somebody gets frustrated and they have the wherewithal to think, I can't get through to this agency, let me call my assembly member or senator. We make that phone call on your behalf. We will get a body on the other end of that line, and we will get an answer. Now, it may not be the answer that everyone's looking for, but we will cut through that red tape. Now, the thing is, it's a heck of a way to run the railroad. We can't do all that. So somebody that's got the gumption to say, I'm going to call Steck, they get an answer. Somebody else is like, he's too busy. I don't want to bother him. They wait. And, so I try to put the word out. Somebody, hey, if you applied for a liquor license a week ago, good luck. I can't help you there. You apply for a liquor license 3 months ago, and hey, you got because they got a 6-month backlog in the liquor authority. It's crazy, time is money. So send them my way. We're going to help everyone we can.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, everybody. Have a good night. I'm going to beat feet south.
Thank you.
All right.
Drive safe.
See y'all later. Yep. Thank you. Sure.
Okay, we'll move on to the resolutions. First, we'll have Highway, Don Chambers. First resolution, setting a date for a public hearing on proposed local law D, number to be determined for the year 2024, amending local law 1 for the year 2018. A local law permitting and regulating all-terrain vehicle operation on certain county roads. Can I get a motion? Mr. Smithers and Mr. Sheridan. Go ahead, Don.
Yes, thank you. Tonight we have in front of you the resolution setting the public hearing for basically opening up roads in the area of Edwards and Russell, trying to make the move toward the southern connection for trail system. Within this document lists the county roads and a county bridge that would be opened with this proposed law.
Any discussion? Mr. Sheridan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to offer an amendment to this resolution on the last page, which is page 3, under section 4. I are the letters in front of County Route 24 from Gibbon Road to Town of Edwards line, 2 miles. I would like to change that from Town to Hamlet of Edwards.
Do that as a friendly amendment?
Yes, friendly.
Okay. Any discussion on that? Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Hull.
Oh, Mr. Chair, just a question, will there be new signage accompanying this change to inform folks that these roads are passable in the system?
Once this law goes through, I would believe that it would be put out everywhere. If you'd like to speak on that.
Yes, as we have in other areas for the trail system, signs would be included.
Thanks.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We have a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Barton and LaJudas DPC to provide environmental services needed to prepare Appendix A for the new trail segment in the hamlet of Edwards as included in the final generic impact study for the multi-use recreational trail. Can I get a motion? Ms. Curran, second. Mr. Sheridan, done?
Yes, by the way, that can stay as town on this one, because this will be taking in areas that are within the town as well. But when the FGIS was done a number of years ago, in that document, it requires an Appendix A, which is an environmental study, a completion to be done before the opening of another phase of the trail. So we're doing a local law to open the trail. We have to do the corresponding environmental study that will go along with that opening of the trail. So this would fund that study that's required by our own statement, our own study, excuse me.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
We have a resolution modifying the 2024 budget for the County Administrator's Office for the multi-use recreational trail. Can I get a motion? Ms. Curran, second. Mr. Denisha. Go ahead, Tom.
Yes, as this resolution states, the board was looking at trying to open up a section of trail between Picketttville Road and Parrichville and Morgan Road and Colton. However, there were some obstacles that were in the way in order to open that segment of trail. So the proposal is to utilize these funds for trail maintenance that were set aside for this study, and to do that study maybe at a later time and come back and get approval from the board in a future budget.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Have a resolution authorizing the chair to sign an agreement with National Grid for relocation of utilities regarding the Browns Falls Road Bridge project. Motion from Ms. Curran, a second from Mr. Denisha. Go ahead, Don.
Yes, the utility lines that, the actual poles that hold the national grid lines are located outside the highway boundary. And then the power lines actually cross over the top of the structure diagonally. So it basically doesn't allow for us to reconstruct the bridge in that area. And by highway law, if the facilities are located outside the bounds of the right of way, the municipality is due to pay the utility company for that movement. The engineering staff at National Grid have looked at the area, have submitted an estimate for the cost, and we need a resolution to be passed in order to sign that agreement and to pay National Grid.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
We have a resolution amending the official county highway map to reflect a transfer of property between St. Lawrence County and the town of Fowler. Can I get a motion? Mr. Sheridan and Ms. Kern.
Yes, thank you. I've been working with the town of Fowler their superintendent down there, Randy Durham, on addressing some issues that quite frankly are over 30 and 40 years old. And basically the road swap that we would be proposing would be the Belmont Fowler Road between State Highway 58 and Little York Road, which is 0.13 miles in length, and also the Belmont Fowler Road from State Highway 812 to Pump House Road, which is a private road. And then the county would be accepting a section that's would be an extension of County Road 22 to the Emeryville Road Bridge. At one time, this may have made some sense when there used to be a railroad depot and a railroad track that bisected the road, but at this point, there's no distinction when you're driving along County Road 22 and all of a sudden it turns into a town highway. So it would be good to, I think, rectify that issue to make continuity on that section of County Road 22 to a terminus point that makes a lot more sense in my mind. And then also to have these other very small segments of road become town roads. This has been kind of lost. It's not on these two roads that are the Belmont Fowler Road sections are not on the state inventory, they're not on the county inventory, and they're not on the town inventory. So at this point, there's not a single entity getting CHIPS funding for the maintenance of these roads. So I think it's past time that they're dealt with, and unfortunately, they're over 30 and 40 years ago that probably should have been taken care of.
Mr. Smithers.
Yeah, Don, on this portion of road that the county is accepting to the Emeryville Road Bridge, is this the bridge that's been closed for a number of years? And
Yes, sir.
is that going to have any effect on the bridge closure?
Not unless this board changes the direction from a resolution that said
Just-
to remain closed.
Just checking.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries. One more for highway, authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Slate Hill Constructors for replacement of Town Line Road Bridge over Lisbon Creek, bin 336, 66, 70, Town Oswegatchie. Can I get a motion? Ms. Curran, Mr. Smithers? Go ahead, Tom.
Yes, this bridge is load posted, and that therefore that's why this is on the list. It's also a non-redundant structure, so that if we have one member fails on that structure, could be a catastrophic failure. So this structure is indeed need of replacement, and we had 4 bids. Slate Hill Constructors was the low bid. We have done business with Slate Hill Constructors in the past few years, and they did an excellent job. So I would recommend award to the low bidder.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Move on to solid waste. Have a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a lease with Waste Stream, Inc., DBA Casella Waste Services for the lease of equipment for the solid waste department. Can I get a motion? Ms. Curran, Mr. Smithers.
Mr. Chairman, may I take the opportunity to introduce our new
Most certainly.
deputy at this point? I would like to introduce Ellen Hooker. She is our new Deputy Director of Solid Waste for the county. She's been on board a week and is digging right into things. So I'm pleased to announce that she's a member of the staff and happy to have her on board. So
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
thank you. On to the resolution. We have been leasing these 3 trailers from Casella to move recyclables from the Casella facility in Parrishville to the facility where we are down in Liverpool Waste Management.
Rather than having the recyclables delivered to a transfer station, rehandled, recompacted, put in another trailer, we're simply going to Casella, hooking on with a county tractor and moving these materials without rehandling or recompacting. So it definitely saves the county from rehandling them, and quite frankly, it's basically half of our recyclables in the county are moved by these 3 trailers. So our county facilities would have a very difficult time handling the material if Casella were delivering them directly to our facility. So I think it's a very very well cited for the county to opt into continuing on.
Any discussion? Mr. Smithers?
Don, where do they go from Harrisville?
They do not go to Harrisville. I'm sorry. That is incorrect. That was where they originally went to, was Harrisville. It goes to Liverpool, New York.
Liverpool, okay.
And I
So-
apologize for the typo.
So we should change that to Liverpool, Parrishville to Liverpool.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Got another resolution authorizing the chair to sign a memorandum of understanding with the Development Authority of the North Country Bank for collection of disposed paint. I get a motion, Ms. Curran, second by Mr. Forsythe. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Last month you saw a very similar resolution for paint care. And paint care is being paid by Development Authority of the North Country. After that passed, the Development Authority of the North Country sent an agreement and said, well, we also need to do another agreement with the county between Dank and the county to process this. So I apologize, wasn't made aware until after that was passed, or else we would have done this as a companion resolution, or maybe even tied that into the last one with paint care. So like I said, similar to last month's.
Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is the county attorney, Steve Button, authorizing the settlement of property damage claim associated with Allens Falls Road Bridge in the town of Parrishville. Can I get a motion, please? Ms. Curran, a second. Mr. Forsythe. Mr. Button.
Good evening. I apologize for keeping you waiting. I'm sure you've all been waiting, enthused about the prospect of hearing about this resolution. It's actually rather simple. The individual who struck our bridge caused damage to the bridge, given the fact that it would compromise a claim rather than commence litigation. For a settlement, the resolution before you authorizes the chair to sign that settlement agreement and accept the money from the insurance company on behalf of their insured.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. We have another resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Clarkson University regarding the St. Lawrence County multi-use trail system. Can I get a motion? Mr. Forsythe and Ms. Curran and Mr. Denisha. Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you. I'm actually rather enthused myself about this resolution. As I think everybody is aware, for the last 15 years, the county has spent a long amount of time, a large amount of time, a lot of resources on developing the multi-use trail system. Don Chambers this evening had an opportunity to talk about certain elements that we were looking to expand and to develop within our original main corridor. During the course of those discussions, though, we anecdotally have heard that there have been great expenditures made within our county in terms of tourism, in terms of business outlays, but we've never been able to really capture the extent of the economic impact that the trail system has had on the county. Separately, given the development of the trail system and its auspices under the highway department, we've never gone through, outside of our own examination, outside of the GEIS process, an engineering review of the development and safety of the trail system to an extent that it would make me feel comfortable. And, lawyers are like cats in a room full of rocking chairs, long-tail cats in a room full of rocking chairs. So, Larry and Rick, who sit on the committee associated with the trails, the legislative committee associated with the trails, it really came up with a good idea. And the idea was that we could reach out to one of our local universities who could evaluate from a financial perspective the impact of the trail system, as well from an engineering perspective. We have one of the best engineering schools in the United States, if not the world, situated here in St. Lawrence County. And it would be really remiss of us if we did not take advantage of the relationships that we can develop with our local educational institutions and sort of partner with them to try to help us, help them, help us. So with that in mind, we reached out to Clarkson University, see if they were interested in potentially performing an engineering study, as well as reviewing the financial impact associated with the trail system. They are definitely interested in finding a way to work with us. We're still sort of hammering out the mechanisms by which that relationship would occur, but during the course of the preliminary discussions, they even tossed up the idea that they could analyze the trail system from an accessibility standpoint, make sure that everyone in St. Lawrence County and outside of St. Lawrence County can enjoy the beauty that the multi-use trail system affords to visitors of St. Lawrence County. So this resolution would authorize the chair to sign an agreement with Clarkson University that would provide the mechanism as well as the parameters of that type of relationship for the examination of the multi-use trail system.
Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We have another resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Jada Environmental Services under the Blighted Property Program for the demolition and abatement of 2 condemned structures. Can I get a motion, please? Mr. Forsythe and Ms. Curran. And Ms. Terminelli. Go ahead, Mr. Button.
Thank you. As the board is completely aware, over the course of the last 10 years, we've had a very robust commercial environmental cleanup program associated with our tax delinquent parcels. And a couple of years ago, in development of that program, the board sought to expand the exploration and potential cleanup of residential blighted properties. And they created the Residential Blighted Property Program. Last year was our first year off the ground with that program, and we were able to work on the first 5 properties last year. This year, 2 properties were identified as being properties that would be really suitable for what we were looking to do. In fact, one of them was at the prompting of the Village of Messina and inquiries from the Village of Messina. We affectionately refer to the Sycamore Street property as Big Red. It's a very large residential apartment complex that unfortunately is a significant blight on the community. So the resolution before you would authorize the execution of an agreement with Jetta, who happened to be our low bidder associated with the demolition at the 2 structures. And Jetta is, in fact, a local business operating out of the Messina area, and would permit them to go in during the course of the next couple of months so that we could have these properties ready, hopefully, in time for the auction in September.
Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
We have a resolution recognizing the good work being done by the correctional officers and correctional employees at the St. Lawrence County Correctional Facility. Can I get a motion? Mr. Lightfoot, Mr. Fay. Mr. Lightfoot, would you like to speak to this? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lightfoot. Our corrections officers, they're the unseen backbone of the law enforcement community. A lot of times not being recognized for the hard work that they do. If you've ever spent any time in a correctional facility, you would have a great appreciation for what they do. Unlike, your sheriff's office where they have a criminal and civil division that have public exposure, your correctional facility doesn't. They're in there, 5 days a week, 7 days a week, 8 to 16 hours a day. They're dealing with the people that, that the law enforcement side, your criminal division deals with occasionally. They get stuck with them all day, every day. They deal with a lot behind those doors, and I think it's important that we take the time to recognize the good job that they do. And, I think this is, a great way to show them that they're not forgotten about and that we do appreciate and respect them for what they do.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. The next resolution declaring May 15th, 2024 to be Peace Officer Memorial Day in St. Lawrence County. Can I get a motion? Mr. Lightfoot, Mr. Denisha, Ms. Curran, Mr. Webster. Go ahead, Sheriff.
Thank you. Again, I'll echo, a lot of what I just said earlier. But I think to set aside that week every year and recognize them would mean a lot to them. And at any time, I'll extend the invitation, and I have before. Anytime any one of the legislators would like to go to the correctional facility and walk through and meet some of our employees, feel free, get a hold of me, get a hold of the jail administrator, assistant jail administrator, or our undersheriff, and we'll be more than glad to meet you there. And, I think that they would really appreciate, seeing people come in there and give them a chance to show them what they do.
Mr. Lightfoot.
I'd like to add. I'm sorry.
You
I'll
start
start
over
over.
again.
I get shot. I'm just saying that both of these professions filled by professionals need our backing, need our support, and not just lip service. We need to show them that we appreciate them, that the job they are doing is more than just acceptable, and that we have your backs, guys, as far as I'm concerned. We have your backs.
Anyone else? Mr. Denisha.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And I agree with Legislator Lightfoot. You know, and a couple things, I've had the privilege of touring the correctional facility a couple different times, touring it, might add. And one of the, it was an eye opener. And the last time we were there, I think Glenn, I think you went up with us, and I can't remember who the sergeant was, but on our way out, I said, you know, thank you for what you're doing. And he says, you know, he says, no, thank you, because we don't hear that very much. You know, and the other thing I thought about, it was Saturday evening. And I was getting ready to go to bed, and I looked out on Route 11, and just maybe 200 yards from where I live, and a trooper had a car pulled up. It's 11 o'clock at night. And so I found myself standing there in the doorway looking out, because it was 11 o'clock at night. The troopers out there, he had no idea who's in the car. And I thought about somebody that you'll remember, John Dillon. And John Dillon was this New York State police officer, was killed in the line of duty. And so, you know, our sheriffs, our border patrol, our state troopers, all of our law enforcement officers, and things are different today than they were. And people have no regard, absolutely no regard for authority figures. So, you know, thank you for what you do. Thank you to the sheriffs, to all of our law enforcement officers, and I think they deserve the recognition.
Ms. Curran.
I would like to say thank you for bringing this. I would like to be added as a sponsor if I could, please. I mean, our communities have been touched. We have neighbors, you know, a couple of counties away that buried a police officer over the weekend and one this morning. And it's amazing to me how the world has changed. When I was younger, you were taught to respect the police. You were taught to follow the law. And now it's what kind of a thing can you get away with? And well, defund the police, you know, go after the police. I think that we have sent the wrong message as a society for far too long now. And that's why people don't think much about shooting at an officer or trying to harm an officer, because our governor just let somebody out that had killed a police officer reduce their life sentence. I think as long as the people at the top of the heap pay no respect to police, I think that these are the things we'll get. So maybe us paying the proper respect to law enforcement will help.
Mr. Webster.
As Legislator Denisha said, I went through there, and I can tell you, not a lot of things bother me. But when we walked through that first door and that door locked, I thought, ooh, boy, that's not really nice. And we walked through that second door and it locked. The hair started standing up on the back of my neck, and I thought, well, at least everybody's locked up in here. Then we walked into a room with one guard and 20, 30, 40 inmates, all looking at us, and I thought, wow, these guys are earning money. So when they ask for help or protection or radios or some way to help keep the drugs out so that they don't have the problems, they deserve it, and we need to do what we can to help them. I know money's tight, and there's a lot of things everybody wants to spend money on more important, but these inmates have rights too. But also the guards have rights, and they want to go home at night too because they did nothing wrong. So we need to think about that and support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. Anybody else? Mr. Sheridan.
Yes, I'd also like to give a little credit to the families of the people who are working in these correctional facilities. It's my understanding, it's not just here in St. Lawrence County, it seems like it's a statewide thing and maybe a nationwide dilemma where there's an awful lot of overtime involved with these people. And as a result, it gets old after a while. And when you have people with young families who want to go to baseball games or hockey games or basketball games or birthdays or whatever it might be that's happening in the family, oftentimes that doesn't happen because they just got off from a double the night before and here they are, they're stuck again. The word they use is being stuck. They're forced to work overtime. And that goes on and on and on and on. So that's something that we should also consider. It's the family life that they have when they get back and trying to be a father or be a mother. A lot of their time is dictated to them that they've got to stay and do their job if they want to keep their job. That's probably why there's probably a shortage of manpower in these places.
I agree with Mr. Webster. I went to that visitation or orientation there, and when we got in that room, there's the one guard in there with all of them with no protection. I wouldn't want to be in there without a billy club, a taser, and an Uzi because they scared the hell out of me. They're not the good people. You know, we treat them better than we do the people like Mr. Steck has said, the older generation that's been good their whole life, worked it hard, and they're struggling just to get by. So we thank you all. If there's no other discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, next up, Vacancy Review Committee.
Yes, so this evening we have two departments. One is mine. We go last. I'll have Highway come up first. With more positions than you've seen recently, but they've seen some changes in their department as well. And as they prepare for the busiest season for construction, certainly like to hear about these positions and have your consideration. John?
Thank you very much. The first vacancy that we have on the agenda tonight is for a carpenter position. I have within the budget two carpenter positions, and this one is vacant due to a retirement of a long-term employee. The way the contract works, I'll be looking at, it's required that I look internally, so I'm hoping that we will be promoting within, and then we will be back with the corresponding vacancy that would be necessary, hoping that we can promote within.
Questions on the carpenter position? Okay, next one.
Thank you. The next one that is the Deputy Superintendent of Highways. This vacancy is a result of retirement of, again, another long-term employee with the department. Hoping to fill this position as soon as I can to assist with our, as the county administrator just mentioned, a very busy construction season coming up. So hoping to move forward with that with the needed assistance with our big capital program and also providing services to the municipalities within the county as well. So this position is pretty important for that.
Questions? The deputy?
Larry?
Don, the deputy highway, deputy superintendent, is that full, you looking for a PE?
It does not need to be a PE. This staff member deals with a lot, helps me out with the service requests and dealing with the public's needs and the needs of the towns and helping me with the organization of staff and such.
Essentially the same thing that Brian did.
Yes, sir. Same thing. Yes, Brian was the previous person in that position.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Next one?
The next one is for a motor equipment operator. This usually results in a hire from outside. We don't necessarily have the opportunity every time to hire somebody with a CDL. So likely when this individual, if we're allowed to fill this position, would need to go through our CDL training school within the department to get them trained to operate equipment. The motor equipment operator, a few years ago, we eliminated most of our labor positions and created a motor equipment, more motor equipment operators. So this is a truly an entry-level position that handles labor as well as equipment operations. So it is very much needed in order to continue our program, from snow plowing and winter maintenance to road building and maintenance in the summer.
Questions? Okay, and the last one is abolish and create.
Yes. The reasoning behind the abolish, create, we are abolishing a bridge construction mechanic, which is a pay grade 18, which is the same as a motor equipment operator. Like I said, most of the time that results in a hire from outside. We have not been able to, when we've had prior vacancies for bridge construction mechanic, we have not been able to fill those vacancies in-house. Or when we advertise them to the public as well, because we don't have people that meet the qualifications that are going to work for a pay grade 18. This is why I'm requesting that this move to a motor equipment operator and hopefully train the skills that they can become a bridge construction mechanic or another item within, another work title within the department.
Any questions? Mr. Denisha?
Sure. Don, the base salary, MEO is $19.74 an hour. That's about $5 an hour less than every town around here is paying.
That's correct. That's from the contract that was settled in 2019.
So how many people, as far as I know, one of the issues that we've had is retention. So how many folks have we hired, if any, that have come onto the county as an MEO, gotten the training, and as soon as they've got it, they've said, "See you later, I'm going to work for a town."
Well, I'm glad you're not suggesting that too many places, but we've been actually pretty fortunate. A lot of our individuals have been staying. We have lost a few, but it's not necessarily right after they get their CDL, but we've lost some with a few years in with the county, and then they leave, and a few others that were shorter term, but it's not necessarily right after, immediately after. They usually get a little more under their belt and then they leave, if they do leave.
So retention is a problem.
It is a problem.
Mr. Smithers?
Don, I'm asking this because you might know, whereas I certainly don't. How do the benefits of the county compare with the benefits of most of the towns in the county?
Well, I would say it depends on what the town has. Some of the towns have their departments of highways under the Teamsters Union, which I would say that our benefits are much better. But a lot of the other towns have, their CSEA and have state retirement just like the county. So, it's kind of apples and apples on that one. But there are some towns that are Teamster Union, and that I would say is not as good. So, but I think usually when we're, somebody's going to another municipality is for about $5-6 an hour range or more.
Any other questions? Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Next up, County Administrator.
So tonight I have two positions to present to you requesting consideration for a fill. The first is an abolish and create. Certainly, this is the central office and the function that not only serves the board, but serves the county in that all resolutions, all departments, all interactions, we're one of the central offices. So in looking at our next year, we're anticipating some staff transition. And in looking at that, having held the position myself and understanding the challenge of the ever-growing environment where more information is always needed, more fact-checking is always required, we are now also implementing an update to how we do things in that we're moving towards civic clerk. So in consideration of this and looking at the setup for the workforce coming in, I'm not entirely sure, and she can disagree with me if she likes, that we're going to be able to find someone who wants to give up every Monday night of their life, basically. It's a much better and more attractive opportunity if it's shared. And so that is the environment that I came up in, was there were two deputy clerks and essentially all tasks could be shared between them. For a number of reasons, we've moved away from that for a period of time, and that obligates, separate from vacation or illness, one person to staff every Board of Legislators meeting that we hold. And so in looking at how we might attract folks to come and work for the county, I certainly am the poster child, but I think in looking at the work and how much is required outside of work hours, I wanted to think about how we might better look at that going forward. And it also ensures that if illness and when vacation comes, you have someone who can step right in, burst in everything that we're doing. Right now, we work with Rebecca, who is taking a position in HR, and she will step in and loathes most of the time what we ask, but carries it out with professionalism. And I think having someone come in where we can share the duties between them equally will also give us an opportunity, one, to bring someone in now when we anticipate in 2025 a retirement, but also then knowing that that position's going to have to be backfilled with another new person coming in, learning and understanding what it is that's required of the office. Because a lot of times, like many offices across the county, you see these things in a year's time only once. And that's very critical for this office. We are the repository for all records when it comes to resolutions. We are the contract entity that makes sure they all get signed and recorded. That's any number of things along the lines of budgets, local laws, all of the things that the very small print, because I had a lot to say, shared with you in the vacancy that was provided in your agenda. So we're looking to go back to this. I don't know yet if it will be successful, but I'm requesting the opportunity to give it a try. And I'm happy to answer your questions.
Any questions? Seeing none?
Okay. And the second and final vacancy for this month is the review or request to fill the superintendent position for buildings and grounds. Our superintendent departed for significantly more pay and also no longer having to supervise employees. So even if there were opportunities to adjust salaries, I couldn't remove the opportunity for this role to supervise all of our buildings and ground staff, which includes our maintenance folks, our grounds folks, and our electrical maintenance workers. So all of that needs oversight. We have supervisors on staff, but I'd like the opportunity in this and the former to advertise as soon as possible, if there's no objection. We are looking at how we might evolve the Buildings and Grounds Department. I'm talking with the chair of our Buildings and Grounds Committee, looking at potentially moving forward into the facilities environment and looking at what oversight of that might look like for us. But in the meantime, the ever-present need to have that supervision to be able to pull in a talented individual that's a very broad and general role, but able to both advise and participate when needed, as well as budget background and being able to manage staff are all critical components of this role. So I ask in its current iteration for you to authorize or not object to us moving forward with the fill. but also to be open to a greater discussion when Buildings and Grounds Committee has an opportunity to bring you a recommendation for where we might head next with the talented group that takes care of all of our facilities and our grounds. Questions? Okay, thank you.
Next up, the American Rescue Plan Act. Ms. Doyle.
So I have a couple of updates for you tonight on the matter of our water and sewer, our utility projects, as well as our broadband. I think that you all, in one way or another, have inquired about where we are and how we're moving forward. So I thought we'd focus on these two this time. I'll talk with Chair Reagan about reconvening the group, just in anticipation of either affirming what the contracts that are in place are doing, or to be looking at that list of items that we may want to bring forward as recommendations, should we find out, or vendors that we've selected may not be able to move forward with their contract. So we want to be well prepared for that. Hopefully, we can carry through with what's been awarded and how we've appropriated, but just in case, we'd very much like to be prepared for that. So on the water and sewer, Jason has shared with me that we have spend total at this point of 1.35 million complete in true two drawdowns so far. Just so that you remember, the total appropriation for these projects was 2.9 million. And so that's just about 55% spent. And I think there was at least one village that reached out last week to find out, only to affirm they were fully funded already. So they have already spent their funds. We only have two municipalities who've not spent any money yet. And there are 5 that are all done. So we're moving through these, certainly paying attention to, I believe that some of these municipalities also had complementary funding sources as well. So we'll get an update on those before the committee convenes again to make sure there's no issues with the 2 that haven't started spending yet, or the rest who have yet to complete their drawdowns. But that's where we stand with that. So again, it's about 55%, and there's about 1.6 million left to spend. Okay, any questions on water and sewer? And I have details associated with which municipalities and how much they've spent, if you'd like that. The second item is on broadband. The committee convened again last week. They've been meeting regularly, and I certainly invite anyone who's participating with this committee to chime in and share your perspective on things. So we have an understanding that they are out of the 2.9 that's been allocated for broadband. There were 16 contracts. As you'll recall, Adirondack Tech had 1 and Slick had the other 15. Adirondack Tech has completed their build out, and it's expected that Slick, with 15 contracts to pass, or 535 previously unserved households, will be getting their construction in May, and that they are expected to complete their work this fall. So certainly that would be, the goal to begin with, is to make sure all these funds are spent as intended. But they're continuing, I think, looking at where other counties have come in. Just some anecdotal information. There are 14 counties with higher percentages than St. Lawrence of underserved populations or underserved households. The counties with the highest rates of coverage are Schenectady and Westchester. And the population density, of course, they're much smaller counties with many more people. I think that's sort of the proportion that we're talking about here. So there's been 111,000 allocated of the 2.9. And one point that they wanted me to share is that the reimbursement component may not reflect the work that's been done thus far. I think there are other support functions within the work that Slick has to complete that aren't quite finished yet. So I believe it's a chain. We'll keep watch over this and hope that they get started in May and track their progress throughout the summer to be able, if needed, to make other recommendations. Are there any questions?
Mr. Webster, what is the last date that money has to be reallocated to be used before it'll be lost?
I believe that is this year in '24,
Any idea when?
December 31st.
Oh, December, okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Forsythe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ruth, when all is completed, how many households are they estimating that'll be left
I believe-
unserved?
Have Jason help me with that
I
one.
think I saw something in here for 6. And if I remember, there was 2,000 originally, wasn't there? Somewhere around 2,000?
There were 831, I think. Is that the right number, Jason? Can Rick speak to that? Yep.
Yes.
So ARPA alone, Jason, is that the 701, the 66, and the 535? ARPA? Alone. 601.
Okay, so when this is all said and done, right now, we got just shy of 500 that we gotta try to figure out something for. Okay, and also tomorrow, Legislator Lightfoot pointed it out to me a week or so ago, Scott Gray has the two tomorrow, right? 23rd. I plan on sitting through it. I don't know if anyone else in the committee plans on sitting through it, for more expansion of broadband. That's supposedly available, so, yeah. Yeah, so I'd like,
Yeah, I think there'll be someone from Jason's staff attending.
okay.
Yep.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions on that for now? And we'll get you a full update once the committee has an opportunity to meet. Okay?
Okay, following up with that, we have a resolution supporting an application to the New York State Connect All County Partnership Program and committing matching funds. Can I get a motion, Mr. Denisha and Ms. Curran? You can go ahead, Jason.
Thank you. Yes, good segue into this. From the previous discussion, the call tomorrow is about this very program that the resolution is for. So we were informed of a new funding opportunity called the County Partnerships Program through Connect All. That's the state broadband program. It is a program, or the specific components to the County Partnerships Program is some additional funding that the state has that counties can apply for if they have an existing or have issued an RFP for broadband service, which St. Lawrence County did last year. That's how we created the lot arrangement for the ARPA funding. So if you remember, there are 21 lots in that RFP. ARPA funded 16 of those 21 lots. That means that there are 5 areas or 5 lots in the county that have yet to be able to be funded. We have identified 48 households in 2 lots that could benefit specifically from this program. So that's what we're proposing through this resolution to look to build out those 48 households. And that is estimated at a cost of around $600,000. this program requires a 25% match, so that's the reason for the resolution here is that looking for commitment from the county for up to 150,000 in local funds to provide for that match element for this this funding source.
Any questions? Mr. Forsyth?
Jason, thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chair. When this is all said and done, will there be a map available of unserved households? Like,
Yes.
there might be 5 on the Ross Road in Lisbon and.
Yep, we have that data now.
So,
Yeah.
so we can identify where it is.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Is that mostly in the southern portion of the county?
It's, the challenge is it's sort of mixed all around. Yeah, there's certainly probably a higher concentration in the southern portion, but what we found is there's a lot of 1 and 2 units, you know, here at the end of a road, 4 or 5 houses over in this part of the county, in between 2 service area or service providers areas. So there really isn't a large concentration anymore that would make it appealing for a contractor to bid on. So that's why this extra, these incentives are very helpful to encourage the providers to build to those more difficult, less lucrative areas.
That's where I get most of my calls. They have it half a mile down the road, but they can't come to me.
Right.
Any discussion? Mr. Denisha?
I just briefly, Rick, thank you. And yeah, and that's an issue, because I know Jason is well aware of one of my constituents that they fall in this, the service from this way ends before their house, and the service from this way ends before their house. And so I think there's a number of people that fall into that category. And you know, I know that the provider, it costs money, they're never going to recoup their investment. But we still need to get broadband.
Any other discussion? Mr. Forsyth?
Just a follow-up. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Starlink, 473 households at $500 is 236,500. And all those places, they're in the middle of nowhere, can be served as an option B.
Mr. Webster?
And also with that Starlink, I can't see why we couldn't ask for a deposit on them. If you get a dish, whether any of the companies, you pay a deposit on the dish or a fee. So even if we got part of a fee, you could drive that down halfway. It'd be the cheapest way.
Anyone else? Ms. Haggard?
Mr. Fotenauer, do you have any information from Mrs. Ames about the update or talking points that went along with this resolution? One of the committee members texted me and asked if I would bring that up.
I know I was at the committee meeting, and I'm just trying to
Okay,
to formulate.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, formulate my thoughts here. Help me understand, Mrs. Hager, the nature of the question, maybe a little bit
And
more.
I
If you
think
just repeat it.
most of it's been covered, but it was an update that she provided on where we are. And Mrs. Terminelli was going to speak to that tonight, but
Right. Yeah, okay, I think, going back to the broadband update, that, County Administrator, gave, we did touch on, the unserved households and essentially where we started with unserved households at about 7,000, and then moving down to about 400, about 500 or so now. And then we did talk about additional, the funding sources for the additional passings. I think we talked about that, the NIPA project down in the town of Fowler, and Pitcairn, 130 passings. NBRC project is really helpful because that can be county-wide. So we're looking at absorbing some of those other lots that I mentioned, of the 21 lots are going to be absorbed by the NBRC project. Let's see if I can touch on a few other things here. No, I think pretty much everything else. I'm not sure if that's getting to the nature of the question.
Yes, I think that's what she was talking about.
Okay.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot like
No
that.
problem.
The other thing is, I just want to commend you on the amount of work that the committee and your office in particular has done in getting this project almost to completion at this point. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is the first quarter financial update.
So a couple of data points to share with you tonight beyond the traditional report that's included in your agenda. But just to go through that in summary form, the first document has all the departments and then a summary of the other funds included with it. So I just wanted to share that we had 6 departments over that magic 25% this quarter. We had 5, though, of the 6 that were within 10% associated with that. There are 3 departments, as you will recall, who receive their revenue first, and then they play catch up with their expenses. It's not to suggest that they don't spend. They certainly have staff, and they have materials, and they also have benefits applied all to their budgets. And those are Board of Elections. They are, if you look in your detailed report, they are 13.9% spent. The county clerk's office is 19.4% spent. And real property, as I said, all 3 of these come in revenue heavy first, is 21% spent. So they're well within the realm of the first quarter spending that you expect to see. There are 11 of our departments who are reflecting in this report less than 5% of their revenue received. So as you know, many have to place their claim with the state or the federal government for their aid or whatever is appropriate after the quarter closes. So we're looking at a couple of strategies where they may be able to prepare those. And while we are very careful to only use what's reported in Munis in our financial reports, we can also anecdotally share with you that they have an amount that they're prepared to submit to their funding agency so that we have an idea earlier on than we do now about the challenges they may face in funding associated with revenue. The only other fund, so that's the bottom half of that first page, there's only one of those, road machinery, that's just above at 26%. All the others fall within their quarterly spend. When you look at the detailed report, that captures at the top the entire county, all funds spend. And I would just point out that we are within our spending for personnel. We're at 19.8%. We are just up in revenue. We're at 33%, so we're 8% over where we would plan in a perfect scenario. And in our benefits, we're at 19.6%, so we're about 5.5% under that spend for the year. Any questions on specific departments? Certainly, you're welcome to reach out to them directly or ask. Most are with us tonight. But I do have just a couple of other data points. You can hold your questions or ask them anytime. I did want to share with you on contingency. For our Q1 spend, we are at $573,541 of a $5 million contingency budgeted for this year. And that is a breakdown of $72,900 in targeted contingency spent and $500,641 in untargeted items approved so far. For overtime, that's inevitably a conversation that the board's interested in. And the sheriff's office first, looking at criminal, currently they're at 53% spent. Sheriff and I have been having conversations about their vacancies that you're well aware of, and that has generated some overtime. We'll be looking in areas where they're beyond where they should be this time of year to have those conversations with you about moving some of those funds from targeted contingency in that overtime category. The jail remarkably is only at 38% of their original budget. That's of a spend of 143 in the budget. They've spent 53.8 so far this year. I also thought it's a little disproportional to only talk about the sheriff's office. So I wanted to talk to you about a couple of other areas where we see a planned spend associated with overtime. The first one I'll mention is our dispatchers. And that is to cover shifts. Sometimes they need to stay over, sometimes they need to come in when they don't have adequate staffing. And if there is an event that requires additional response, sometimes they have to call in additional staff. They are currently at a 37% spend, with a $39,000 budget to start with. They're at 14.6. Similarly, planned overtime for solid waste. Currently, and you'll remember in the enterprise fund, we set aside their contingency for overtime in their own contingency line, not in the general fund. They're at 41% spent. I think you're aware also of vacancies in that area of $110,000 budget. They're at 45.3 so far this year. And the last that I wanted to mention in this group regarding overtime is the county clerk's office. They are currently with a $37,500 budget. They're at 26.1 due to staffing shortages. They're at about 70% of their spend. So you'll see departments with those who have funds set aside in contingency coming back to have that dialogue with you, to talk about what their needs are, and then to request some of those funds be moved across. And because I know health insurance also comes up typically around mid-year, I thought I would just give you at least what Munis is reporting. Now, we know the delays, much like we talk about on the other side of it when we're the billers, but talk about making those payments as a payer. We are currently spent out on just our hospital medical insurance line, 29%, out of a $17.5 million budget in, again, just that medical insurance, we're at 5.1. Administration, I believe we pay our annual fees more upfront than we do throughout the year. We're at a 40% spend of a $1.27 million budget at $518,000. And then pharmacy, I think those are really the compatible big spends. You know, we have dental and vision and Medicare, and there's quite a few others in the T5s in the treasurer's budget. But pharmacy, fortunately, depending on how far delayed we are, we're at 18% out of a $9.5 million budget. We're at 1.8. So those seem to be trending, at least currently. That may change dramatically when bills catch up and payments are made in the second quarter. But I did want you to have an understanding of where we are with that. I did also want to mention, I've met with the treasurer. You have become used to seeing the unaudited results in May every year. Last year, there was a delay finishing and closing out 22. And so those were presented at the June Operations Committee meeting. This year, our Munis conference that I'll be sending my assistant administrator as well as the treasurer and some of her staff takes place during that week of May finance. So what we thought we would do this year, we don't anticipate the delays we saw last year, but what we thought we would do is have the unaudited results presented at June finance in the same meeting that I present the reserves recommendation that you've grown accustomed to around what out of last year's performance do I recommend we move into buckets, if you will, or those reserves that the board has created. So we think, unless there's an objection, that will be our plan. As I said, there's no anticipated delays in the filing of our AUD this year or in being able to close out so that those unaudited results will be prepared. But what we'd like to do is to present them to you at the June finance so that you're aware. Any questions on the quarterly report? And the other thing I just wanted to mention, since we're talking about the finances, is some adjustments I know that Highway will be looking to talk about related to the outcome of the budget and funding sources. I asked before Don makes reductions in his plans that I be able to come back and talk to you. We are in a situation where we're having a big year. We funded a big year. Extraordinary year as far as the road miles. And I may be coming back to you to offset that state difference and determine what that number would be so that we can continue the work that we planned. But I'll talk with Don more about that and bring that back to you very soon. Also, a couple of other financial updates, if I could. Some of you have been asking about the opioid settlement funds that we, the county, have received, not the federal funds through COSAP, not the state funds that you're seeing resolutions come through, the funds paid directly to St. Lawrence County. And I met with the treasurer and deputy treasurer to talk about the total, which is $921,000 in '23, and how we might appropriate that to offset county cost. As you know, we have implemented the MAP program in the jail. And last year, because the MAP program was required to go into effect in October of '22. And so certainly we didn't plan for that in our budget, but we did have time to set some funds aside in contingency for that. Very early, you may remember February, March timeframe, we moved 500,000 over to help pay for what we didn't have any concept would cost. So one of the first thoughts that the treasurer and deputy treasurer had was, let's return that 500,000 to the county because it fits into the restricted and the unrestricted categories of use by the agencies that have created these rules around what we can use these funds for. So first, we'd like to take 500 off and return that to the county associated with our implementation of the MAP program. And then we'd like to take the balance of the $421 and $33.07 and divide that by 4 and use that in the Addiction Services Clinic in Canton, the Ogdensburg Addiction Services Clinic, and the jail-based addiction services component of the clinic. And then, since we're dividing that between the costs, add another $65,642 to the MAP program. And that would complete the spend, at least the allocation associated with all of the opioid settlement funds we've received. Any questions about our plans?
Mr. Reagan.
So in using these funds this way, we reduce the county cost associated with the difference between what we've been paid by the folks who've received services and what the counties had to pay to keep the services in the county.
So,
From what we've received, there would not. We've been asked to allocate all of the funds we've received so far. We anticipate this year to receive another 250. Correct. Understood, and I'd be happy to talk with the sheriff about that. We meet tomorrow.
Ms. Curran?
I would tend to agree. And in fact, Mr. Reagan, I do have an appetite to talk about that. I, was saying to somebody today, you know, if Home Depot gets busy, they hire more clerks. If your restaurant gets busy, you hire more waitresses. Law enforcement is the only place in the world that I've ever seen that crime is up. You don't want to put anybody in jail, and by the way, you don't want to hire any more officers to enforce the laws that there are. And we do have a horrible fentanyl problem. Not just the people who overdose, but the numbers of people that you see with track marks in their arms in St. Lawrence County is something you rarely saw in the city of Syracuse when I worked there, 15 years ago. Rarely did you ever see anybody come in with that issue. And we have them everywhere here in St. Lawrence County and our young people. You may not be killing them as a criminal, but you're killing them by bringing this stuff here. And it's a shame that instead of standing up and saying, the people who bring this stuff into our communities have to be arrested and put in jail forever, we say, well, I don't think it's that bad. Maybe these people shouldn't go to jail at all because, they're people too. Well, they're killing people. I think it's kind of time for us to start having a few laws that are actually followed. And I think that we should hire more police officers, maybe for the sheriff's department, because they're the busiest business we have at the county. And I think it's time to help them.
Mr. Burke?
I certainly support the sheriff's office and what they do. But I've been told that you can't arrest your way out of the problem. And we're still stuck with the cashless bail, so that people are back out in the streets again. And just as a takeoff to what Jim said, I don't know, I'm certainly not the smartest one in the room, but I don't know who would have a handle on this. I'd like to think our community services board could help advise us. I think the sheriff could help advise us. It probably needs a coordinated plan, and I agree with Jim that at least a portion of the money needs to be spent to fight the problem if we can figure out a way to do that.
Mr. Lightfoot?
I don't want to talk about the money part. And they've elected to actually supplement the folks that are doing this by opening the borders up. So we already know where the problem is, okay? I will tell you this. I was in the narcotics business all the way back into the 70s. That's 50 years ago, okay? We're not going to arrest our way out of this. I don't care how many police officers you put out there. As long as there are people making money selling dope, and back in my time there, it wasn't fentanyl, it was cocaine. And there were a lot of people with needles sticking out of their arms in Syracuse, because I was down there then. But the fact remains is that you can throw a lot of money at something, but I don't think that's the way to do it. We've got to do something about electing people that are willing to go out on a limb and start doing what needs to be done, not just to the people that are spreading this, but the governments that are allowing it. China is, I think, proven to be the biggest, and they are bound and determined, hell-bent, to see the United States go down. And I think that's been a big topic on the news as lately as this week about China and fentanyl. Back in my day, it was the South Americans bringing cocaine in. Big problem. People were dying from it. You've heard of the Len Bias disease? Len Bias was a basketball player. He tried it once, killed him. They referred to it using cocaine as the Les Bias disease. Okay? Just, well, I shouldn't say just as bad, not as bad as fentanyl, but, here again, throwing people at this, yeah, you're gonna arrest a lot of people, but it's not gonna solve the problem. It's a bigger problem, it's a national problem, and it has to be dealt with, at that level. We can do what we did. We've arrested a hell of a lot of people in St. Lawrence County for the possession and sale of drugs, a lot of them. And where are we with it? We're no further ahead now than we were in 1970, believe me. So, while I understand what Mr. Reagan's thoughts are, that's not going to change things by putting more people out there. Do we need more people here at this locale? I don't know. Maybe we do. Maybe we do. Certainly something that we'd probably all be interested in considering. But by the same token, and it's been said for years, it's not something we can arrest our way out of. That's not going to solve the problem. Thank you.
Unless we arrest the administration, federal, state that are allowing it.
Need somebody with a set.
That's right. Mr. Forsythe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I can't disagree with anybody. My thought is back to the money portion, is years ago, we got tobacco settlement money. And we got substantial amount of tobacco settlement money, and we started working that into our budget. And we had a couple rough budget years, and we just put this one-time money into that. And I'm not saying that's what we're doing now. I think this is a good use right now. But I think we ought to have long-term goals for what the highest, best priority and efficiency is of utilizing that money. And I don't think we've got a clear, I think this is a good solution for right now. But there's some of those plans are 19, 20 years out before they're paid off. So, but it's a finite amount. Sooner or later, it's going to disappear. And if we budget and keep budgeting and work this into our budget, then sooner or later, we're going to have to pay the piper down the road. So if we can utilize this to whatever the highest and best use in a priority setting, I think that is my thought. So.
Anyone else?
Understood. And I would just comment on that real quick. We aren't budgeting it. That's why I'm coming to you now. So I agree with the point.
Mr. Webster.
I think we need to look at some of the money we're spending on it now, like this MAP program. We're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on drugs to give to them, and they're still going home doing fentanyl and whatnot. We just paid $40,000 almost in taxpayer money for bus tokens to get them there to pick up their drugs and get them home. You can't make it any easier. Why aren't we taking some of this money and trying to say, you got a choice, you can go in the jail, and you can't get any better situation than that. You can go into rehab or you can go without. I know a lot of this is state mandated, but we need to see some research on what the outcome of this really is and if it's helping or not. With the amount of money they're dumping into this, and and overdoses are at an all-time high, deaths are at an all-time high, drugs are at an all-time high. I don't know how you can say the system is working. We need to stop handing out drugs and try to cure some of the problems, help some of the people.
Anyone else?
Okay. So to follow up on Senator Steck, the state budget's been officially adopted. I'm asking departments to get back some information based upon early assessment versus what was in the final version of the budget that we can share with you at the board meeting on May 6th. There is a briefing tomorrow morning that NISAC is hosting to break down the budget. They typically will run through about a half-hour presentation just to give the high points. So if there's anything different than what you heard tonight or any updates that are worth sharing, I'll send that out to you. Wanted to let you know that last week I was able to participate. As most of you know, we're planning our own active shooter drill. And I was able to travel to Messina and participate in the active shooter drill held at Arconic. That was a full-scale drill. And I would have 3 words to share with you about that. Powerful, educational, and proud. Proud of all the agencies certainly to our point a little bit earlier, of all the agencies and how well prepared they are. And not only did they use this certainly to prepare our conic staff for what could occur, but they use it as a training opportunity for all of these agencies who don't work together on a regular basis in this capacity, but who come together to respond. It was extraordinary. I want to highlight for you how well prepared our dispatchers were for this. We deployed the UCV, the new Unified Command Vehicle, to the site. We were able to, because of updates in the technology, partly because of our renovations, we're bringing that vehicle up to the standards that would allow us to travel anywhere near a tower and be able to dispatch like we were sitting in a center. And that's exactly what they did. They were on site while this drill took place, dispatching all of the agencies, even bringing in a helicopter in the event that something like this were to occur. It was remarkable to see how they all responded. And I've never been through or to something like this. So we meet again tomorrow for our courthouse drill planning. But I believe that it certainly helped prepare me because I did not expect all of what I saw and experienced. Next, there is planned to be a tour of the state correctional facility at Riverview on May 22nd. If any of you are able to attend, again, that's something that I had the opportunity to do last year. It was not anything like I expected, much like I'm hearing some of you talk about the county correctional facility and the model that you didn't anticipate that you got to see. Similarly at Riverview, and there's a remarkable number of programs and dedicated staff who work there that I think if you have the time on the 22nd, that you should make the effort to attend. If you're willing and able to join, let us know, and we'll make sure that Legislator Reagan can share that so that you can be added to the group that's going to tour. We will meet, Buildings and Grounds Committee will meet. Oh,
Go ahead, Mr. Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just so you know, we're arranging that tour with Riverview Correctional Facility. And if you're interested, we'll need your names as soon as possible because we have to submit the names to the State Department of Corrections, and they kick them upstairs for review. So, you know, if any of you are interested, as Ruth said, I think it's a very eye-opening experience, and it's not what a lot of people think a state medium security prison is like, and it's very educational. And but we'll need to know who is interested so we can submit your names for review so we can get permission for you to be part of the tour.
Ms. Haggard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Does anybody know what time that's supposed to take place on the 22nd?
10, but I can verify that for you. Morning, one in the.
The same thing? Okay, thank you.
Okay. We just wanted to remind that the Buildings and Grounds Committee standing meeting will take place this Wednesday at 2 p.m. This meeting is the one that we have arranged for Beardsley to give the monthly update on the public safety complex renovations, and they've been doing a good job. They typically bring a few folks to make sure we stay on. That's above and beyond what they're doing on a daily basis with Joe Preshaw and our staff that's working on the project. Thursday, there are 6 of us counties that are meeting virtually to discuss medical examiner issues. Now, you all will recall not too long ago, we were in a really bad scenario with not being able to find appropriate services and traveled as far as Broome and Monroe County to do that. We're much more fortunate right now with Dr. LaPointe working with us through St. Lawrence Health. However, we know with the severe drought of available medical examiner, forensic pathologist type staff that we could be in that situation again very easily. So on Thursday, Jefferson, Lewis, Oswego, Franklin, Herkimer, and St. Lawrence will all convene to have a conversation about our options. And any information that comes out of that, I'll be sure to share with you. I did want to give you an update, since it's finance, on the spend associated with the Employee Recognition Program. If I could, just in summary, We have spent eerily similar funds between the 2 years since this program's really come into what it is now. In 2022, we spent $5,800, and in 2023, we spent $5,900. And that has spread across a variety of things. The first year, the group supported having the bench placed out on the other side of the courthouse parking lot for Mary Lou Rupp. And, you know, over around the holiday time, some of the departments provided mugs for their staff, chairs for their staff. We had some holiday type contests, so we were able to buy gift cards to share out with staff as sort of a promotion and recognition of their work. Certainly, we provide meals to them at certain times, both during weeks of like Public Health Week or Dispatchers Week or Correction Officers Week. We've been able to do that and let them know how much the work that they do is appreciated. As always, I welcome suggestions. We have looked into between the work that EAP is doing and the interest that we have at potentially having employee night somewhere, whether it be a hockey game or some type of event, that we would be able to offset that cost if folks were interested. But it has been a success. Between the 2 years, there's a difference of $165. So I'd say we're right in that ballpark of just under 6,000 being spent to let our employees know that we appreciate their work. And I wanted to remind you that there's no meeting next Monday, the 29th, and the board will convene on the 6th. Questions for me?
Thank you. Since it is finance, how's the Board of Legislators flowing?
It is depleted, I believe. We're good now? People have been paying, yeah. Okay.
So we got a little bit of flush. Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Okay, next up is old new business. First, we have a recommendation from the Committee on Arming of Probation Officers, a discussion. Yep.
So the committee to review the arming of probation officers was appointed last August and began almost immediately meeting to discuss and collect data and determine what would be important to know before making a recommendation back to the board. And so generally speaking, the committee met each month. Everyone left with homework. We involved 3 legislators, 3 staff, through 1 community member. We had 1 or 2 present from law enforcement and 2 or 3 county staff that were involved. So we had a really good group of folks to have a discussion. We started with the chair of our committee attending a department meeting. We followed by initiating a survey of departments, which we saw over 60% participation, which is pretty good. And then we were able to begin discussions around how we might facilitate both information for staff to be informed and educated, to discuss and evaluate the liability of both of arming officers and potentially not arming officers in the environment that we live. So the action was initiated with concerns raised by this board. And I think in many of the discussions we've held tonight, the determination was made that the environment that our officers are going into is changing, has changed, and will continue to change, and not for the safer. And so that also was in the forefront of our discussions as we continue to meet. We were able to be flexible and hold some Zoom meetings. We were able to solicit input from another county on all sides, both of those who chose to be armed, those who didn't want anything to do with it, and those who maybe didn't want anything to do with it, but then as they worked through the training and understanding, began wanting to be armed. So we currently provide our staff in the probation department with an option for a defensive tactic type training. We also, in the last, I think 4 years, I can't remember exactly what year, armed our officers with pepper spray. And so they're trained on that to use and carry. And then with the use of ARPA funds through public safety, we were able to purchase ballistic vests that the director had been interested for a number of years, seeking a funding source to make it happen. And so there have been a number of steps taken to move toward a safer environment for folks that we're putting out in the field. And this committee had the opportunity to take a look at that, also to hear from council after looking for case law, looking for incidents, looking for information in and around what's happened in those counties that are, what happens in those counties that aren't, and where do we think that we fit. And while we're able to sit here and tell you we've not had a situation occur yet that has endangered our staff member to the level that you might expect being armed would remedy, it doesn't mean we won't. And so that conversation required careful attention. And so we brought the staff back together in December to share all of the information that we collected, to both increase their knowledge, but also to take more input from them. So 2 separate times plus a survey tool to make sure staff were involved in the discussion about a very important issue in the county. Second only to the sheriff's office in county government, thinking about what this would mean. It's a very heavy lift to think about having to carry a gun to do your job. And we did not take that lightly. So the committee has finished its work and is ready, I believe, to make a recommendation. Chair Webster?
We're gonna, next Monday, following Monday, we're gonna send for a resolution. Recommend that we move forward with it. The population of probationers are definitely changed. They're where they used to be people who made bad decisions were on probation. Now it's people who are making bad decisions over and over again. It's the ones that 5 years ago would have been in jail. And it's getting more and more dangerous for these probation officers to do their job. I had one of them, a lot of them sent me emails because I asked them if anybody has any ideas to shoot me some emails. And one of them really touched me. It was a young woman who had a family and was afraid that just afraid some of the stuff that could have happened. She just felt defenseless. A lot of the Zoom meetings we had, one was with another county, which had 4 people, a director and 3 of the employees, one that carried, one that didn't carry, one that carried but didn't carry, or gave it up because of restraints and stuff like that. And it was just a very positive thing. Director LePage got us a lot of information from other counties on who carried, who didn't carry, and incidences and stuff like that. Although the incidences are low, the people on probation are changing. It's different than it was years ago. It's changed a lot, and I think we need to move forward. The majority of the counties are armed or moving that way. And unfortunately, like correction officers and everybody else, it's just getting more and more dangerous for them, and we need to kind of evolve with it. And we'll move forward in a couple of weeks with a resolution and vote on it, and I hope that you guys support it. I think it's probably the best for our probation officers, for our county, and for employees. Thank you.
Any questions? Mr. Burke?
Just wondering so if we go ahead with this, it'll be mandatory for all, or is it an option still?
It's gonna be kind of a hybrid where anybody that's there that wants to be armed can be armed. They're gonna go through extensive training. Anybody that doesn't want to be armed doesn't have to be. Now, as we move forward, new employees will be armed as it'll be part of their employment. Like I say, I think the majority of the people that are out in the field right now want to be armed. The people that are in the offices and aren't out in the field as much are the ones that don't want to be armed or kind of on the fence. So it's not like anybody's going to lose their job if they don't.
I may not have heard correctly, Ruth, but did you say that it was an option for the defensive training? Or is that a mandated?
So that's something that we're actually looking at changing the department and the county's posture on. Up until now, it's been an option. And there's been a variety of levels of involvement or enrollment. What we'd like to do and to make the recommendation to the board would be to make it mandatory. And also, regardless of the decision for existing staff to be armed or not to be armed, they would still be required to go through firearms training.
Mr. Webster?
Whether you're armed or not, and you're out in the field, and somehow a gun comes into play, you should at least be trained what to do with that gun if you get a hold of it, or if you have to get it away from somebody. Say 2 or 3 officers are in a tussle trying to hold somebody down and they got a gun. If you don't know anything about that gun, it's just a dangerous situation. Whether they're armed or not, they still should have the knowledge of what to do.
Mr. Forsythe?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering, was the sheriff's office involved with that?
Yes.
Oh, they were?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Mr. Forsyth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank you, Glenn, for all the work you did on it. Thank you, Tim, and everyone else that's been involved with this, and Ruth. I think it's important. Once we get over this hump, I will support your recommendation without doubt. Once we get over this hump, maybe we ought to look at some other departments that have exposure to a rough type of personnel as well, or clientele, and maybe move it forward some more. But thank you very much.
Mr. Reagan.
Do we know how many people in the department are against this idea?
Well,
So 15 of them do not,
about 32 in the department.
don't like the idea of being armed, and about 15 do.
And I think to Legislator Webster's point, I think this is the start. If the board's supportive of the recommendation, that would provide the opportunity for logistics, operations, policies and procedures, and of course appropriations from this body to be considered to support both the start of the program and then in the 2025 budget.
Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to just kind of tag on to Mr. Reagan's question, understanding the sort of the disposition of the current employees. Is there objection or concern with, was the question framed as, would you personally want to be armed? Or was it framed as, should this be a component of the job or available as an option in the future? I'm just trying to figure out, was it a dislike of the idea, as Mr. Reagan framed it, of these officers being armed, or was it a dislike of them personally being armed?
Go ahead.
A lot of it was, and some of them didn't want to be armed, but it didn't matter if other ones were. There was a couple big older guys who didn't really want to carry. It's not because they didn't want to carry, they just didn't feel they didn't have to, or didn't want to. And that's fine if that, you know what I mean? Another thing too is, like I say, with extensive training, our sheriff's department, we know they don't have enough to do, but they've offered to help train all the, the officers, a lot of the hand-to-hand, gun, training and the stuff like that. So it can be all done kind of in the county.
Mr. Smithers.
I'm sure that with, like a lot of other issues, there's pros and cons to this. And instead of just having the pros and the reasons for it, I'd like to be made aware of the reasons that people don't want to participate in this. So if we could get both sides of the story, the full picture, I'd like to hear both sides.
Anyone else? I had one question. What about body cams? Do they carry those now, or is that something they would be required to do?
They don't carry them now, but that was one of my suggestions. If you're carrying a sidearm, that you should carry a body cam. Or maybe just everybody carry a body cam anyways. For the cost of it, it would probably be a really good insurance policy.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, moving on. Any other, Ms. Haggard? Yep, that's what I was asking. Any old business? Oh, you can't do that yet. If there's no old business, how about new business, Ms. Haggard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a change of pace from our discussion. On Friday, Dr. Suzanne Smith was inaugurated as the 18th president in 208 years, only 18 presidents at SUNY Potsdam, and I was honored to be there. I'm sure we all want to welcome her as she joins the St. Lawrence County academic community. Potsdam looks forward to her leadership and vision guiding SUNY Potsdam towards continued excellence and growth. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other new business? Okay, moving on to committee reports. Mr. Denisha, Cornell Cooperative Extension Board.
Mr. Chair, we've not met since my last report, and our next meeting is Thursday, May 23rd at 6 p.m.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sheridan, Fish and Wildlife Management Board, Region 6.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our committee's not met this month, but we will be meeting on the 20th of June.
Okay, thank you. And does anybody have anything for Ms. Terminelli on Fishery Advisory Board? Okay, moving on. Mr. Smithers, Governor Fair Board.
Governor Fair Board is having a derby May 5th. It's upcoming. They're getting the winter storage units cleaned out of the business buildings that have been there for the winter. There's a website set up to enable purchasing tickets for the concert this fall for the St. Lawrence County Fair. When David Lee Murphy and Low Cash will be there. That's on a Saturday PM. The website is etix link, or you can call the fair office 287-3010. The ticket prices are $70 for reserved seating, $50 general admission. The agenda is like similar to in the past. Tuesday night is talent show. Wednesday is band day and fireman's parade in the evening. Thursday is harness racing and a free concert at night featuring Buckshot and JC and the Rattlesnakes. Friday night is tractor pull and Sunday is demolition derby.
Great, thank you. You can move right into Highway and Solid Waste Committee.
Okay, I have nothing further on highway other than the concerns already expressed regarding New York State budget and not increase any of the funding for the highway department.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Reagan, the Industrial Development Agency.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have anything to report since my last report.
Okay, thank you. The Recreational Trails Advisory Board, I didn't make the meeting, but we did have some resolutions today. We made some big strides as far as getting our Southern Trail going, which is huge. The trail's open May 15th. Trail passes are open. And we'll move on to Mr. Forsythe, the St. Lawrence River Valley Development Agency.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I gave my report last month. I do know that CDEIP grant application deadline was April 15th at 5 PM. So I'm sure we'll be addressing those at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Webster, St. Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce.
Yep, the chamber has 10,000 visitor guides delivered and in stock. They're handing them out, starting out at the Visitor Center, Ottawa Travel Vacation Show. They got the 2024 water guide in production right now, expected to arrive in April, anytime now. The tourism team headed to New York State Conference last Tuesday to Friday. They're heading down to tomorrow to speak at the Akwesasne Tourism Summit. Their marketing plan and their proposal drafts are in process for a bunch of the new stuff that they're starting this summer. It sounds like it's going to be a busy summer for them, and they're really gearing up for it. They're doing a great job over there.
Great, thank you. Either Mr. Burke or Ms. Haggard, Soil and Water Conservation District Board of Directors.
I have quite a few things, actually. Chair Andrews updated us on the Farmland Protection Board and what they've been doing. I did want to mention there's a new board member who many of us may have met, Megan from the Never Tire Family Farm when we went on the tour. So welcome to her. West Potsdam at 310, many farms are participating in a $50 million investment coming together as a group for methane gas digesters. It's a California company that is putting this money in, but it's got a lot of interest and a lot of farmers, big farms are getting on board, not necessarily with this project, but with their own. Let's see. I'll skip over a few. Oh, Aaron, our forester, gave us an update on the emerald ash borer. He'll be marking in the next month, and there are about 200 to 300 trees per town left to do. So that'll be going on this summer. he also brought up an interesting conversation about a carbon credit program, which is very important, and talked more about his forestry plan. I don't know if anybody was able to look at, or if we posted that 30-page preview. That was that. Yeah. Okay. And I'll ask John if he has anything more to mention on that. They're advertising for mosquito dunks because there's encephalitis going through the horse population. So they have a huge pallet of like thousands of these mosquito things that you can put near bodies of water to keep the mosquitoes down. I said, I don't have any horses, but if we do it, it can help everybody. So if you're interested in that, you can go over and pick those up. They've got 2 interns coming to work this summer. Also, the Nature Conservancy has money and is giving money to plant trees. And it's really all on them. And it's a great thing that they're going to pay for everything. So they've been working with them. Let's see if I missed anything. And we're continuing to develop a strategic plan to guide us on soil and water, because that's never been done in the past. I think it's good. Do you have anything to add, John?
Just to say that the discs, the mosquito discs that you put in the water are free, and they're limiting the number that you can have, but it's nice that they're looking in that direction to prevent crippling. And tree sale was a success. They sold all the trees, and even the ones that they had a few left over, they were able to sell all of them. I think Margaret did a good job of covering it. Just to mention what Aaron is talking about, the need for the county to invest in helping to restore the county forest land. And there was some discussion, the Nature Conservancy is really interested in planting lots and lots of trees. I mean, I don't think we ever decided if we were going to do anything with the land where the transfer stations were, or was there 90 acres or however many acres there were there, plus the old landfill in Canton. So, you know, if it could be planted with trees that at some point down the road might be of value for harvesting, if it didn't cost us anything to have them planted, it might be worth considering.
Thank you.
I thought of something
Go
else.
ahead.
Thank you. There's another disease coming up from Pennsylvania, and it's called beech leaf disease, infecting trees. So I don't know how many beech trees we have up here, but it's spread through Pennsylvania already. So it's right on the precipice of coming to New York. Also, getting back to Aaron, he's looking at a 20-year plan to take care of the land that the county owns, and it's really comprehensive, and that's how the Nature Conservancy came into it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Smithers.
Yep. I have a question on these mosquito dunks that you mentioned. Are there recommendations as to what kind of body of water, like the size, effectiveness, any regulations as far as just putting them like in a lake or a river? I mean, there's probably some recommendations on the utilization of it.
We didn't cover that at the meeting, but on the package itself, it says it's safe for fish. So, but it cautions humans as far as handling it. It can be caustic, and I don't know. Aaron would probably be the forester. Would probably be the one to ask. The way it was presented to us, if you have any bodies of water that's just lying there, that it's a opportunity for mosquitoes to breed. It kills the larva. So. It is. Right, right across from Coakley's on that side road.
Yes.
It is the old DeKalb, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Denisha.
Yeah. Was it? Yeah. Well, yeah.
At our Colton meeting, they have a BTI program, and she reported on that. It is still water, standing still water for mosquitoes. And some of the biggest areas are logging roads where the ruts fill up with water. Those are some of the biggest ones, but around your house, make sure all your containers are empty. You see little things swimming around in there. Those are mosquitoes. That's the larva. And that's what they take care of, just for that. I saw another, Mr. Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If, we could encourage Soil and Water and the Environmental Management Council and the Youth Bureau, and whoever, Office for the Aging and others to put their heads together on having some training sessions for citizens on the proper way to plant trees and find some resources to pay for the seedlings. We could probably get a lot of citizens groups across the county, both youth groups and adult groups that would be interested in planting trees on our county properties if we, made sure that they knew how to do it properly, because an awful lot of seedlings die when people plant them improperly because they really don't know what they're doing. And, if there was guidance on where we wanted them planted, it would be much more beneficial to us in the long term. But I think there's a lot of folks out there who are interested in being involved in such an effort, and we could harness that and also get some trees planted.
Thank you. Mr. Webster?
Just out of curiosity, does it say anything about that, like standing water with, if there's cattle or something like that, livestock? Has it gotta be in some place where there's no livestock? Didn't say.
Any other committee? Oh, Mr. Reagan.
Yeah, when I worked for Senator Ritchie, we distributed those dunks, and they're safe for both human contact and, not to drink, but it's, they've been evaluated very heavily, and they are environmentally safe for, they are targeted specifically toward mosquitoes and won't harm your your fish and others. So, but I do agree that getting advice from the folks over there is beneficial. And, there's a lot of standing water in this county, and any efforts we can make to reduce the numbers of mosquitoes is beneficial, because it's not just triple E, which is dangerous, and particularly dangerous to livestock, but there's a whole host of other diseases that are carried by mosquitoes as well.
Any other committee reports? Seeing none, we have a need for executive session.
We do for negotiations personnel, which is the medical, financial credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation, and 2 appointments.
Okay, kind of a motion going into executive session, Mr. Forsyth, Mr. Smithers. We gotta go and
Just
go
have to
back live. You can go if you want. We're good?
Why not?
Oh, okay. If there's nothing else come before the board, we're adjourned. Sir,
John?
thank you.